Hi, welcome. Welcome to Animaterialities, the Future of Grief, which is a training for political imagination. So we're so happy that you're here. We're happy that we can see you. And we'd like to introduce a little bit what we're going to do today and tomorrow. And
hello.
Hello. We can hear wonderful voices in the background. This is great.
So we're not alone. That is a relief.
So first, I want to welcome and say hello. We're together here. Mithu, Sanyal.
It's me.
Eroca, Nichols, who is in Canada, and Neha Chriss, who is in Australia. So we're doing this over 3 continents, and we are crossing 16 hours between us. So Neha is at 6 o'clock in the morning. Shout out to her for getting up and being with us. And this is what it is working in Zoom, which is wonderful because at the same time of not having you here present, we have a lot more other people present from other countries, continents that we can actually share this moment together. So that's wonderful. So I want to say thank you to the FFT for hosting us and making this possible. I want to thank everybody, and I will do this properly. This is why I wrote it down. I want to say Catherine, Christoph, Björn, Jasper, Malte, Frank, Gert, Sandra, Julia, Whitney, Anna, Clara, Andre, and everybody else who I might have forgotten. Maybe I'll just say something about how we're going to use this Zoom thing. So you're all together, and we invite you to keep your camera on so that you can see each other, so we can share some kind of presence with each other. We invite you to mute yourself, at least until we ask you to unmute yourself. There's also a chat function which is open for everybody, and there will be moments where we ask you to write in the chat, also to communicate your wishes, your questions to us. So Eroca will ask you to formulate a question relating to grief. What is your question that you might have been carrying with you for a while, or that is burning now? If you put it if you type it in the chat, we're just going to read it out loud to Eroca, and they will answer it. Also, Mithu will ask you to maybe formulate a wish that you want to formulate.
Definitely formulate a wish. Not maybe. You've got to really, really want something, and I'll tell you what you can choose from and what it's all about. And please, you can choose also the magic we're going to perform. I'll tell you all about that later.
So that's the chat function. Also in the chat function, you'll see a YouTube link. This YouTube link brings you to the break room, let's say. There is a 3-hour loop of elemental magic that Eroca put together, ASMR videos with the Femme armor as healing weapons, weaponized for healing. And you'll be able to go there whenever you want, keep your camera on, keep Zoom on, it's all fine. Just go if you need a break, go and enjoy the quiet, the wordlessness, and come back whenever you feel like it. This is going on, it's there for a break, it's there for a cigarette pause, it's there for just kind of letting things sink in that maybe have been done and said before. Also, speaking of breaks, we will have breaks in between. 3 hours is a long, long time, and we do want to
go to the toilet.
We do want to go to the toilet. We want to have a drink. We want to maybe change locations. We want to maybe get a drink to sit with it. Do whatever you need to do. It's very simple. We're going to announce the breaks. It's always 10 minutes, and there will be a signal for you to come back. Okay? What else is there in terms of Zoom hygiene?
Are we going to show them the break image?
yeah, the break image is, I'm going to just show it like this. It's a clock. It's a cooking clock.
An egg timer, and we'll be the eggs. The egg is an old symbol for the soul, so.
Thank you. This is Zanda, our wonderful camera woman, who is also running around the whole time. What you see here is our kitchen that we installed for you. We've had a tremendous support in trying to make this as kind of sensory experience as possible, with all really wonderful support. You will see also Zandra will be walking around, so you'll see her in the image, and you'll see also the entire setup eventually, I guess. Also, I want to introduce Matty Rouse, who is sitting in the dark right now, but you can see his setup already behind Mithu, who is going to accompany, there he is, who is going to accompany Mithu and play for us today.
Well, I'm going to accompany him. He's saying I'm not. But he's basically doing the breaks. And at the end of the break, there'll be a song, and then they all come back together, and then I'll talk to you. And at the end of the talk, there'll be another song, and then some music for the break where you can stay and listen, or just go away and get something to eat. Because it's all about the body. It's all about feeling well, even with this weird medium in between us.
So that's exactly it. I mean, most of you will have read the program, or also the kind of the lineup for tonight. But maybe just as a reminder, and when I look up and not in the camera, it's because I'm looking at you, because we have a very big monitor behind the cameras so that I can see you, or we can see you. So it's going to have 3 parts, our evening today. The first part is going to be a conversation between Neha, Eroca, Mithu, and myself, introducing the question why we work around grief, why we propose grief work as something to share as a collective, and also probably introducing a little bit of, or giving you some background of who we are and where we're coming from. The second part is going to be a performance lecture by Mithu, and the third part is going to be the Femme meditation with Eroca. And each of them, we just take it slowly so that each of them will be introduced again and so on. But so just that you know, and in between there is break, so you can think it's probably around 45 to 60 minutes each part. Right. Great. Shall we start?
I thought we already started. Shall we start with the second?
So I hope we can see Eroca and Neha soon.
That would be lovely.
So why here we are. Hello.
Wonderful.
Must unmute. Okay. Hello.
Yes.
Interweb. Okay, I know that I'm not in that space, but it looks so fucking great. Oh my God.
You are in that space. You are here.
I know, but I'm not touching whatever weird sausage is that you have all over the table, and I wish I were. Yeah.
And Neha, can you just say hello? Hello. I'm here. Oh, you have to unmute. We can't hear you.
Oh my God, you look so beautiful.
They look amazing.
It's 6 a.m. Nia. What are you fucking kidding? You look so good.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks for having me. Great to be here. Hello, hello.
Hi.
So cute.
So this is about a year ago, we were all in this space together. We were all together for 30 hours in the theater, working in a similar format, only live with everybody, and around the question of post-human solidarities. And now we're here with grief and grief work. And
because the question of solidarity has changed so much. Solidarity meant, a year ago, it meant coming together. And now solidarity means, go away, stay at home, don't touch anybody. And so we're grieving about that. I am grieving about that.
So maybe we could just ask by asking, why grief? What brings you to this work, Eroca?
Ooh, okay. Start with me because it's not 6 a.m. for me. Fair. I think it's not for me, why grief now? It's kind of like, why grief earlier than now? I feel like it starts to feel like in this moment of the pandemic and the way the anti-Black uprisings have been going on in the States and then around the world, it's kind of like, why have people not been on the grief tip earlier? I feel like a lot of the work that I've been doing has been around the stages of grief, specifically because of my the last sort of 5 years of my work have been dedicated to a trilogy around connecting people with the ways that we operate around consent in performance, and then in the process of doing that work, introducing and taking apart the ways that we take for granted touch, and we take for granted like an ongoing consent inside of the frame of contemporary performance. And so while I thought I was doing this big work around ritual and contemporary performance and consent, my partner, who was also my stage manager, became sick with lymphoblastic lymphoma, and they became sick. We did a project around their funeral. They died. It's a lot. It's like, let's kick this off intensely. So most of the work that I've been making has been around sort of like, what is pre-grief, what is a good death, and what is agency around queer and trans bodies in that frame of agency and consent around death and dying in the most fabulous ways that are possible. How do we create space for the kind of death that we actually want to have? And what does that mean socially? What does that mean aesthetically? What does that mean in terms of our health? What does that mean in terms of community health? And yeah, so that's part of the frame of where that started. I also, before finding out, someone's gonna mow their lawn right now, so just a second. Somebody always has to like cut down a tree or
Is it okay now? Now we can't hear you though, Eroca.
Hello?
Better? Yeah,
Yes.
now it's okay, Ken. Yeah.
Wow, I don't even know what happened there. Okay. that wasn't from where I am. I don't know what happened. So maybe that means that was enough of an introduction. Shall I continue, Siegmar?
Well, you
Yes,
can
please.
continue or pass it on. I think it would be nice to just keep this ball going.
Yeah, let's keep it rolling. So this is like, yeah, I've been working with death and grief in social performance, ritual, personal ways for a long time. And yeah, just I want to call my queer ancestors and my loves who have passed over and who are still alive into the room, as well as my ancestors who are blood relatives, and my mom who's alive. Okay, just feeling like it's a good opener to call who we want into the room. Okay, I will pass it to Neha.
Lovely. Am I heard? Can I be?
Yes, you're heard.
Excellent. Grief. I'm so enthralled by the physicality of grief and the physiology of grief. I feel when I first sort of came into a place of working with trauma deeply in my life was probably about 15 years ago. And out of that personal work came something of a relationship with sonics and sound, and not exclusively, because I began to realize that there are so many textures incorporated in grief, so many states of the body, and of course states of cognition. But grief has, I think, for me, a unique, something of a unique life in me, and that I found grief to be an entity that can often lack a dwelling, or is seeking a dwelling, and that this, on a personal level, can be quite confusing, but then can also surprise us as well. And when I began to think about this concept of grief, the nomadic grief, on a more cultural level, I think we all live in a history of grieving and grief. I believe we are all very much tied to grief before we manifest here, and after we move on or pass on. And so it's that relationship with grief that I find interesting, and have wanted to delve further into, if not in sound, then surely in concept. This nomadic grief and the wandering grief, I believe, when it erupts in a cultural sense, it imbues and informs politics. It imbues and informs our sociocultural norms. All of the grieving that we experience is something of the collateral of the decades, the collateral of the centuries, and the collateral of the of the time, the expanses of time. And so I don't believe that grief is something we ever really escape or get away from, but discovering means of cultivating grief, means of reincorporating grief, not as the traditional state of immobilization, the depressive grief, these thoughts that we have around grief, but how do we sort of be in that place and always be willing to move forward in it? Or how do we find our own determinations within this sort of mountain of time, this tomographies of grief? So,
and Neha, Neha, when you say nomadic grief, do you mean transgenerational grief, or do you make a distinction there? How can you say some bit more about that?
Sure. Well, this is something interesting about temporality, right? Where grief is concerned, because it's multidimensional. Grief is so deeply personal, and erupts into a politic, one way or another, and yet we also have this grief that is nomadic, almost laterally among community, among peoples. They inform words that we use, languaging, and even everything from the modern table to the scientific endeavors of today, very much come from a place of grief and grieving. So that's some of what I mean. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thanks.
I just want to bookmark the thing with grief as a dwelling, because first of all, I love that, and I'm going to bookmark that for later, because you are a femme genius, and I will talk about that with you later. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Boop.
Well, I think one of the reasons where this comes from is also that to realize that there's so many different types of grief also, of course, and there's the personal that is related to a human, but then there's also the personal that is related to conditions, and then there's collective grief. And that's one of the reasons why I think both Eroca and Neha, you both said, there's a bodily element in this, and I think that's what I see a lot at the moment, is what I experience a lot at the moment, is how the body reacts to the situation right now. And the situation right now is not just the pandemic, but the pandemic also functioning as a prism for a lot of other conditions that are actually not just worth grieving, but actually have induced grief for a long, long time. whether it's climate change, whether it's social injustices, whether it's the history of slavery, whether there's so much that comes up. I mean, you know, I have children, and I remember I went to a demonstration with Sam, Fridays for Future, and they were mentioning again the kind of 1.5 degrees that should not be surpassed, and it was organized, of course, by young people for young people. So it was very short and incredibly great soundbite, so to speak. And Sam turns around to me and says, "But if that's true, then I don't have a future." And and I said, "Yeah, of course, you have a future. We just don't know how it's going to be." So that's also part of it, that, and I guess the situation right now is that one of the griefs is to actually maybe let go of a predictable future. And grief, personal grief, has taught us so much how to work with that, because everybody who's experienced grief, and I have with my sister passing 2 years ago, you feel like your whole world has changed, right? And so you don't know, you have changed. You don't know how to place yourself in the world. And a lot of the bodily symptoms that we have, or that a lot of people are describing to me in conversation, are actually those symptoms of, you know, fogginess, the feeling of displacement, the feeling of not knowing what to do with oneself, or also not, like, an alienation from oneself, of not knowing anymore, who am I, how am I functioning in this. So that's one of the reasons why I just think, why for me this is an opening to really hopefully start a collective, and why the collective I'll come back to that right now, but I just was thinking this kind of the intergenerational, it's grief that is really also manifesting in bodies over generations and over, and scientists. I mean, there is a scientist who's done already research. 2016, he started, unfortunately, his name elapses me now, but he wrote letters to all climate scientists in Australia, asking them, how does your research make you feel? And first he didn't get many answers, and then after like half a year, the letters started coming in, and people were starting to describe grief. Scientists describing of what they are, you know, where they're at, what they're seeing, how they're interpreting the data, and that induced, this is how they described it, the feeling of grief for them. So we're talking about all kinds of different grief, and I think that's also important, because on the one hand, I think, yes, what you're saying, we can learn from grief, and we can learn how to live with it rather than get over it. But it's also interesting to see, like, to look at what are the different types of grief, and how to be very specific. Actually, we can't look at it, we just have to be in conversation with each other. Me too.
It's so funny because when I met you all last year, it was like a kind of opening, because this is what I'd been looking for. Because I always talk about healing, and everybody comes and listens and says, yeah, sure. Because in a way, I try to jump over the period of grief. I want to arrive at healing before we look at anger, grief, all these emotions. Yeah. And so I'm an author, and I do loads of lectures, and people come, and then there are discussions, and they always ask me all the big questions, because they always think I have to know, because I write. I have no idea. Yes, that is what I want to talk to you about. And then I notice very often it's not about, they ask me something, why do all the Muslims always rape the German women? It's not about, it's just fallacy, it's bullshit. So, but they don't want to hear the answer to that. There's something behind that. There is a feeling behind that. And if I try to explain, if I give statistics, if I talk about this is the wrong question, this is racist. If I talk about all this, I won't get to them. So I'm kind of torn, I'm in between that. So I have to give the information for the rest of the audience because it is wrong. I shouldn't just leave this like this. But at the same time, there's somebody actually calling out for help in a public space, and they're coming to me. There's a lot of trust in there. And I thought I want to react to that. And I actually got some supervision for that. And I thought, what can I do? What can I do then? And I noticed it brings me in touch with all my own feelings of grief and how I didn't have a public, that's why I love when you say public grief. You haven't got any public spaces to grieve together and to say this is worthy, this is worth grieving about, and it's good that we're doing that. We haven't got all this, you haven't got a framework for that. So we all deal with it individually more or less well. And that is the problem, because I think it is a responsibility, it's a social responsibility, and we're just keeping our eyes closed and saying, no, if it doesn't exist, it's not there. If you don't talk about it, it's not there. And so you are working with the body. I'm working a lot, you're doing a lot more than just work with the body, but you work a lot with the body. And I notice I need the body in this. I need the body in my texts. And so I'm really excited about what's going to happen. And I will start with love, and I will start with healing again, trying to jump over it, because it can only be ourselves.
Everything has to start with love and eating.
Love and eating, that is good. Eating, yeah, the last time I did a lot about food, because it's all we take in and how we change it. And what I would like to ask you, Siegmar, and you, Neha, is you work a lot with the vagus nerve, and you were the first to actually mention that to me, and that opened a whole new world to me. Could you tell me a bit about that?
Well, the only thing that I'm going to say about that, because I'm going to pass this to Neha, is that Neha introduced me to it about 4 years ago, to the Polyvagal Theory, written down by Steve Porges. And I've been learning from it and thinking through how can we then work as performance artists to activate the self-healing and co-regulative potentials that our body has. But Neha, you should talk more about this.
Okay. It's just a light topic for 6:30 in the morning. Yeah, the vagus, the body, I think if we really consider what we inhabit in this physicality, in the body, the thing that feels hurt, the viscera, the feeling that you're being watched, these feelings of anger, sadness, happiness, joy, are all sort of a bit of a mystery. Once we start digging into philosophies, we have to look at causality. Well, what creates or makes that? Is it an idea? Why do I cry? Why do I feel loss? And how are those things sort of interpreted in the body? And then what the brain does with them. And when we start asking those questions, we very quickly get into a bifurcation and a set of representative notions about feelings, and then of course subjectivities. But I think what's interesting about the vagus nerve and the studies in neurophysiology is that at the root of subjectivity is the nervous system. And the nervous system itself is an incredible artifact. It's something that we share with mammals. At least the human animal has a mammalian nervous system, with the exception that we have the distinguishment of being one of, I won't say the most emotive necessarily, but we have developed a nervous system that has greatly enhanced our capacity to communicate emotion in a variety of ways, to reinterpret emotion, and to find meaning and to make sense of it. And so these, I think, words around subjectivities, when we say that we see something a certain way or that we have an opinion, we can, I think, often in discourse, in our day-to-day conversations, we can almost reduce these things to just dialectic and even symbolism in some sense. But the polyvagal theory really speaks to the human condition with a different set of understandings. And at the base of that understanding is this idea that, or this reality that the nervous system is something that has been within the animal kingdom for a long time. And it is the human animal that has sort of incorporated various modes of switching between older and newer parts of an apparatus, a nervous system, that then becomes representative of our common fight, flight, fear responses. So the polyvagal theory talks about the vagus nerve, the 10th cranial nerve, that extends from the cranium. It also extends into the brain, obviously, the temporal nerves. The vagus nerve connects the upper respiratory and the lower dorsal vagus. So from your lungs, your heart, to your stomach, the vagus nerve is responsible for reminding you that you're hungry. And the pangs of hunger that you feel are adjudicated by the vagus. The vagus controls the pitch of your voice when you're surprised or angry. The vagus nerve controls your facial muscles and your facial features. Often a reason why you can't tell a fib or a lie because your face gives you away. This is the vagus at work in the most rawest form, that you can't really lie to the vagus, and the vagus often doesn't quite lie. And what the vagus is often responsible for is this transmittance, this efferent transmission of visceral organ, heart, lungs, to the brain and back. And so there's a feedback loop. And if we think about what the vagus is doing beyond the idea of a system, if we stop considering that the nervous system is something that is a deterministic entity, okay, and we kind of just sort of leave the logic of the system out of it, we can become aware of something deeper, which is the vagus is something of a pact between the mind and the body. It is the open pathway of communication. I've hit myself, walking through the street, and I can't ignore it. I've said the wrong thing in a room full of people and I'm embarrassed. And what happens is other people register that embarrassment and they begin to orient and organize around that new emerging emotion. This is what's called the sort of the newer aspect of the vagus, which is all of our capacity to communicate on what's known as a biobehavioral level. These are called biobehaviors, these things where you can tell when another person is scared, and that sixth sense that you get, that nomadic quality that we're referring to even in grief, is sort of part of that process. And so the polyvagal theory itself is quite, it's very specific in that it speaks to this, from the neurophysiologist's clinical context, the system of nerves and pathways that allow us emotional affect. And yet it's also quite broad in the sense that once we start really looking at the body and emotion as a physicality, then we start understanding these really important things about how to communicate or what it means to, for instance, Mithu, as you were saying, have an intense response, an intense reaction to religion and belief systems, that we look at what other people think or what other people believe and we have a judgment. And actually that judgment isn't just an idea. This is something that actually reverberates through the physicality, through the body. And in polyvagal theory, the focus and sort of the budding point, the growth, the space of developing this theory came from work in trauma. And the question was, well, how do we find, how is it possible that whether we are speaking of war veterans, survivors of war crimes, whether we are talking about those who have been victim or survived domestic violence, how is it that just that all of that's in our heads? And the answer is absolutely not. These are things that are very much locked in the body. And so there's all of this trauma work that comes out of polyvagal theory. And this idea that the vagus nerve actually is considerably more elastic and flexible than we give it credit for. That the arguments that you have, perhaps with your parents or your siblings or people in your life about politics, aren't really the brick wall that we believe them to be. Racism is not the brick wall that we believe it to be, and that it exists in someone's head and so it's stuck there, or even that it's so easily wiped away. But these are kind of very fixed states of the nervous system. And when we approach when we have an understanding of that fixed state, then we have a better way, or we have a space to develop more possibilities in how we engage. So that's my 10-minute.
It also makes me think about the practices and like why it's important for us to talk about what we're doing as practices for future grief. Because the thing that I find coming from dancer, choreographer, martial artist, trauma survivor world, is that there's I will use another like hot button like physiology research in the last 15 years, Polyvagal theory and theory around fascia. So it's like the way I describe it is like it's a unisuit. So like let's imagine that I'm wearing a unisuit and my skin is unisuit number one, and there's like, people know what I mean by unisuit, right? Like I'm wearing a onesie, okay? But like it's a sheath around my whole body, and so that sheath goes from the whole body level down to the cellular level. So my body, then a muscle, like sort of muscle groups, so like entire movement chains, each muscle, each movement, so like each muscle group, and then down to each muscle fiber, down to each muscle, like down to literally the cellular level. There's like a collagen water sac around everything. It's also the if you think of it as the filament along which the nervous system travels, along which information travels in our bodies, right? So that's just like a little quick boo on that. But our fascial system 100% reproduces itself. So you have an entirely new fascial structure every 1.5 to 3 years. And so if we're talking about a shift happening, a change being possible, it's not like, oh, well, I learned, for example, like I learned to run like this. And then you're like, well, actually, that's hurting my hip, that's hurting my knee, that's hurting my foot. So in order for me to learn to run differently, I'm going to have different input and practice, have a change in practice that happens over 1.5 to 3 years. But then in that period of time, an entire change is possible, right? So it's not like fucking Biden got elected and Kamala's there, so like racism's over, like suck it, not true, / she literally put people we know in jail. But like if what we're doing is working in a frame of like understanding that practice is dedication, practice is showing up, practice is a commitment, And if we make that commitment in a movement way, in a practice way for ourselves, what is that? What does that do in terms of our framing of collective shift, collective change?
Yeah.
And it's like, so then it becomes, how do we show up, and how do we encourage not expecting a change to happen in 1 second, but 10,000 years of white supremacy, patriarchy isn't going to change in one moment. And so, yeah, just when I'm thinking about like, what is it about these shifts? How do we imagine these shifts to happen? And from whom do we take our cues?
Yeah.
Right.
And
likely
I think
people who have already not, like folks who are used to huge amounts of suicide happening in their communities, so they already feel as if there's no future. So lots of Indigenous community, and folks who've already done these learnings.
And this is one of the things. So the polyvagal theory combines this idea of self-regulation, that the body can adapt and shift and self-heal through, and what you were saying, Neha, there's different feedback loops between neurological, physiological, and social inputs, because it's a constant. So how I feel projects outside, I get a different feedback in, so then it lands differently, so I can start interacting differently with my outside. So this is what I find so interesting, and that is the shift between self-regulation and co-regulation. Now that is what's so beautiful about collective practices and collective public practices, and that's what theater could be, a place to do that. So one of the experiments, I guess, that we're doing here is also to see, can we, and co-regulation is very, like one of the simplest examples, just like you can shift a collective mood in a room. For example, just by breathing together and laughing or singing is one of the easiest ways of kind of getting into the same rhythm. How does that, is that possible with this platform? Is it possible if we are sinking in? So even when we're not physically connected, can we find moments of kind of sensing each other somehow, or profiting from the presence of the other? What you were saying, Eroca, about the showing up. This is one of the reasons why we're asking you to leave your videos on, so that we're showing up for each other, holding this space for each other. Because as you said, Eroca, there are practices already out there about collective public grieving. There is tons of communities who are doing it. In this here in Germany, or in the Northwestern society nowadays, also our ancestors had that. My great grandmother, she was a funeral singer, and funerals would happen that you have a wake where the dead person lies on the table for 4 days, and this table is normally the kitchen table because it's the biggest table. So then the entire community comes around this kitchen table, and the process of death and mourning and showing up and being aware of, what is it worth? What are we awake for? Or what are we waking for? What are we wakeful for also? So this showing up for each other and holding space for each other, and what collectives and communities can we learn from? Because there are tons of practices. We just have to kind of dip into them, practice them, reactivate our own, and this is why the collective thing is so important. That you're not shut away, and grief is not privatized and is not individualized. I'm just checking the clock, babes.
Yeah, running out of time.
We should wrap up maybe this first conversation. We will continue this conversation with, we're having the same kind of introduction tomorrow, but just continuing the conversation. And if you have questions or remarks, maybe you can also put them in the chat, and we can kind of pick them up tomorrow. That would be great, actually. But is there something else that any of us want to say before we start our break?
I'm just really so happy about doing this. And when I heard it wouldn't happen, it might not happen because of the lockdown and everything, I was really panicking because that would have been one of the few things I couldn't have done without. And so I am glad that all of you are here. I mean, all of you are here and giving us your attention and just holding the space together, because I'm going to cheat. So basically I'm going to touch you and I'm just going to find other ways of doing that. So I don't know how to do it without touching. So, but yeah, and you are the first people who are actually talking about changing things. They're not just, oh, the world is a bad place, and now I'm going to describe to you in detail why it's awful. But you were the first kind of, well, not the first per se in the world, but in this performance space where I've been looking for answers, you were the first who said, we want to change something, we want to share it, we want to develop something together. And so, yeah, that's what we're going to do for the next 2 days. Lovely.
Yes, and now let's take care of our bodily desires. We're going to have 10-minute break, and we'll see you back here in 10. Yeah, there is music. There is a break music. You'll see the clock ticking away. And when you hear a song, first it's going to be just acoustic music by Matti. And then when you start hearing the song where Mithu and Matti are going to sing together, you know that that's the time to come back. So see you in a bit.
and the rose call. Still I have you. Railing roll you, the stones in this all rose too. Some days you win, and somewhere inside I know all those who will buy and tell you your tale. Hello, dear self. And downloads and diamonds and babies and chains, holes in my heart and my legs are dialing the pain. Opening the lane again. The rose call and find a way. All roads do. Change comes by and no one knows why. Hailing the lions and loving life. Life is a pain. The rose call and find a way. All roads do. Who knows your chances and God minds my feet. Someone has told me there's nothing to lead 'em astray. And more roles to play.
Hast
Hallo.
du dein Mikro angemacht?
Ja, ich habe mein Mikro angemacht. Könnt ihr mich hören? Es ist sowieso niemand da, das ist schön. Hallo. Okay, a couple of feeling songs here. Get another song? No, don't get another song. Okay. And this is a spoiler because there will be another song later, and they do work. Trust me, I'm a doctor. I really am a doctor, so it does work. I love you, Matty. I love you, Siegmar. I love you, Eroca. Are you there, Eroca? I love you, Neha. I love you all. I really love you all.
I'm very bad at Zoom.
Thank you. But what does it mean? I mean, what does it all mean? And of course, I'm speaking about love. I'm a woman. I mean, I'm a cis woman. I'm so cis that I haven't worn a pair of trousers in a year. And love is what being a woman is all about. And still speaking of cis women here, obviously. Because you don't just gender bodies, you gender emotions as well. Is love an emotion? It's a good point, and let's talk about that later. So in our society, women are supposed to desire love, well, being loved, to see love as their raison d'etre, which is why they're also supposed to do all the work of love, caring, talking and thinking, and because they do it for love, they do it for free. And this is a problem, and I don't have to tell you that this is a problem. You all know it's a problem. And that's why we've become suspicious of love. The political left and artists and activists and all of us have become suspicious of love because we can have kinky sex and talk about taboo till the cows come home to be fucked. but love is, because love is a kind of colored bead that we get offered instead of equal pay, or instead of any pay, more often than not. And because love is a kind of carrot that makes us buy loads of products to be more lovable, because love has become a kind of commodity in itself, well, romantic love. But then romantic love has always been a commodity. And I could spend the next hour ranting about the ideal of romantic love, but I'm not going to, because attention is energy, and I don't want to waste any more energy on romantic love. And because when we do one thing, we can't do another at the same time. And I want to talk about love in a political sense here. I want to use this space to talk about love politics. And I want to talk about the function of love in and for community, and I want to talk about the role of love in politics, and why I want a politics of love, and why I think it is necessary, we need a politics of love. Now, like we heard before, this event is not called the politics of love, it's called the future of grief. And at the moment, so many things are taken from us at a breathtaking speed, and most of the time we're not even allowed to grieve for them, because that would sound as if we're so egotistical that we considered our little personal griefs more important than the potential deaths of thousands of people. And just because the corona measures, the lockdowns and lockdowns light and everything might be justified, it doesn't mean that they don't take anything away from us. And for once, it's taken you away from me. And I miss you so much. And I miss your bodies here in the dark, and I miss hearing you breathe. I miss your energy in this room. And us all becoming a collective kind of body of possibilities. And I miss touching you. I miss even touching you. And so I said, I'm going to cheat. And I miss touching people so much. And when we still thought we could do this with an audience that could be here, with you all here, and here instead of there here in the digital realm, I bought loads of instruments to touch you under these special conditions. And maybe we can you show some of them? Something really nice. This one, this is great, and you use it to massage your own face, or this to massage your head. And and I love this one especially. This is, you can use it to scratch other people or to scratch your own back. And it's surprising how kinky these instruments look. I mean, wow, to scratch someone's back, what next, the whip? So it's like these very innocent instruments have become kind of dangerous so quickly. That's amazing. And so I genuinely spent the last 2 weeks crying. It was clear we couldn't come together, and trying to write this new lecture. And at one point I just thought, I've got to come here, and we all got to cry together. And the problem was that was such a life-affirming thought, and I actually stopped crying. And so sort of different ways to get under your skin, because contact means that we all have skin in the game, and that's what it's all about. We're not safe. Contact is never safe. But the danger is something we've got to address, and we will never achieve absolute safety. That would be death. And after all, grieving touch, or grieving the weight of your body in my arms, is also a way of appreciation and of keeping the flame alive, especially in theatres. I mean, in England, they know all this, and the pest and the Black Death and plague and everything. So they kept a candle in a theatre going, burning, really, to say we're still here and we will be back. And that's why I'm so happy that we're here. We're doing this. We're not saying, okay, we wait till it's safe to do it again. To say, no, this is even more important to do it now. There's never been a time when we've needed it more. And grief is also kind of projecting into the future. And if that's one thing we know about the future, is there will be a future. There will always be a future, and depends on our imagination, all our imagination, of what this future is going to look like. That's why Siegmar and I have set up this kind of alchemistic witch's kitchen here, to scoop up all the things we, all of us, so urgently need to preserve. So we're going to preserve some things, and you've also started to distill something. We're going to distill and brew and bake our dreams and needs into the future we desire, and we have reason to desire. But you have actually started to brew something very concrete, and it's a Birch Polypore. What is that?
So we're going to have I'm going to make a tea out of Birch Polypore. And Birch Polypore is a fungus that grows only on birch. So it's quite easy to find and to not mistake for something else. This one is already dried, chopped up and dried, but they, you know, this one was about this big, like this big.
Yeah, you showed it to us via Zoom. Wow.
Really beautiful. It's quite heavy when you pick it. And then I cut it up so it can dry, so we can make a tea out of it. Now, the Birch Polypore is a really, really, really ancient medicinal ally, I would say. It probably came to biggest fame when they found Ötzi, you know, the mummy that was in the glacier, because and that mummy they think is like 5,300 years old. So Ötzi had on a string birch polypores, and Birch Polypore has antibacterial, antiviral, antioxidant, and
anti-inflammatory, antifungal, anti-cancer, anti-everything.
And they also found in Ötzi that he probably had parasites, so that worked, and they knew that this works. It also, if you cut it in very thin strips, so this, I don't know if you see this, you probably can't see it here. Oh, maybe, yeah, exactly, Sandra. So, yeah, there. Yeah, you can see that the top is has a little bit of another color. So normally this is the bottom. This is the brown bit is on top, and then this thing is the pores. And if you cut a little bit out of these pores, that you can use it as a Band-Aid, because it's because of the pores, it actually sucks the wound dry. And because of its antibacterial and antiviral qualities, it's a wonderful natural Band-Aid that they used to use. So this is a very old thing. It's the tea that you brew out of it is incredibly bitter. So what we're going to do is I'm going to make a tea out of it here, and then we're going to fill it with oregano and marjoram herbs, which are also antioxidant and antibacterial. Oh yeah, this is also a huge immune booster. So this is great for all of us right now. And anyway, in any kind of flu season. There's also a lot of research being done actually that it helps cancerogenic cells to not multiply, but I won't go into that because that's too big of a field. So I'm just going to stay here with it. It's very bitter. We're going to fill it in. Can you pass me one of those little bottles?
Yes.
So we're going to fill it into these little bottles for you. And everybody, all of you who are here, everything that we're doing here in this kitchen, we like to scent you. So by the end of this session, there will be a tincture, an oil, and something else that I might not spoil yet. Yes, exactly. But what I wanted to say is send us your postal address and you will get a care package, so that this shared experience will continue for some of you maybe in a few days, for some of you in a few weeks, depending on where you are, and we can share these things to ingest around us and into the world. So I'm just going to continue doing this right now while Mithu keeps going.
Because I genuinely thought, when nothing else works, we need magic. And magic in this instance just meaning our shared intent. So we've got all these helpers, these aids, these are real aids, and everything that Siegmar has told you about the Birch Polypore has been proven scientifically. So we're not just saying, oh, we hope it will help us because it looks bright. Even though that sometimes is a good way of finding out what a plant does, because they give us signals, they do communicate with us, which is also lovely. So magic does help, and because magic is so much about the everyday life, so we are going to cook this, we're going to distill this, and we're going to brew this, and I love that. And also because safety is in numbers, even though we are told to self-isolate at the moment, we don't want the Birch Polypore to be alone. So we're going to distill herbs to go along with it, to raise it to a higher power. And safety numbers, the number I'm talking about is the number 9, because there's a very ancient, very famous charm. It's called the 9 herbs charm. It's not Hello. Hello.
Wow,
hello,
we're in the
hello.
dark.
Now we
This
can
is
cuddle in the dark. That is even
magic.
nicer. So it's even more magical, but I'm going to show you everything after. So the 9-herb charm is not as old as Ötzi, but still it's more than 1,000 years old. And the herbs are composed to ward off evil and poison and infectious disease. So that's exactly what we're going to do. And we're going to do a 9-herb charm now, and you can help us choose the herbs we put into it. And the 2 we've chosen already is oregano, which is, it's supposed to be the herbal kind of antibiotic, so it stimulates the immune system. It's good against everything. It's a respiratory system, against asthma, bronchitis, inflammation of the throat, influenza. So everything we're battling against, this is what it helps against. So we're going to distill that. While I'm talking, Siegmar is gonna distill it in this beautiful tower there, in the flower tower, and we're going to distill it for you, but we've also cheated a bit. So we have got some of it, oops, already here. Now I've thrown away my microphone. Cheating is not allowed. But we've got some of it already here, so we can mix that. And we thought there's not much to do, but there's a lot to do with talking. So marjorie is good against tension, it's good against stress, it's good against lack of sleep, and everybody has got problems sleeping at the moment. And it does everything. It is interesting. Everything we've selected today is for breathing. It's against cough. It's to make it easier to help with this kind of system here. But also on an emotional level, it shields us from other people who suck our energies. And so it makes it possible for us to open ourselves to others without the fear of being A, infected, and B, of being sucked dry, of being taken advantage of. And it's the skin, it's a second skin for us. So we need for contact, for touch, and it gives us trust in ourselves and in others. So I've got some more to choose from. Would you like some balsam? Balsam is basically doing everything. I'm going to put some balsam in here. Are we? So
maybe you can just say first what the 9.
Okay, we've got to choose from. We've got elder, we've got gorse, we've got sycamore, we've got balsam, I already said that. We've got ragged robin, they're all plants, they've got good names, I love the names. We've got X-stone. X-stone is for our connection with nature. So if you can't touch other people, we can still touch the earth. Something we can always touch. And then there's divine union and sunrise, because you could do with a little bit of sun. So sycamore recharges and revives. It's against long-standing stress and fatigue. It's against burnout. It helps us to allow the smooth and gentle flow of life force energies to uplift body and soul. Would you like some? I can't read it.
So maybe this is the point where Mithu is asking you to choose.
This is the point where you can choose. Else I'll choose for you, and so you'll have everything I have, and then you'll be me, and that is boring.
Maybe Zander, could you show what Mithu is suggesting?
So balsam is for tenderness. So to open up to love and intimacy, to dissolve feelings of separateness and isolation, to embody and express warmth and tenderness, nurture ourselves and others. So I've chosen this, so I'm going to put this in, definitely. X-stone, I already said. Then we've got ragged robin. That's purification. It purifies and cleanses the etheric channels and the subtle bodies, and decongests the pathways and obstacles to realizing health and well-being. That the life force energies flow free and unimpeded. That's okay too, isn't it? And gorse, I love gorse. I love gorse bushes. I always imagine the yellow flowers and hiding in a gorse bush and looking out and having a den in a gorse bush.
Oh yeah, I can see that somebody's commenting.
Good. What are they commenting?
So somebody, they're just talking about the German name for the Birch Polypore is Birkenporling. Does anybody, you're very welcome for the potions that we're making, because some people are saying thank you. Does anybody have specific strong feelings about which oils should be in the 9 charm potion?
So Gorse is for joy, to activate enthusiasm, dynamism. And so to reignite the light of joy, especially when the world is dark. So now we've got 5 plus 3 would be 8. So
One
you can
more.
have a 9th one. Elder, what about elder? Beauty. Beauty stimulates natural powers of regeneration and renewal. And feeling
Sounds good to me.
unattractive or inadequate, identify with inner usefulness and vitality and be alluring.
Sounds great. Yes, elder, please.
Yes, elder, please. We also have divine union. I'm just going to take one away blindly, because divine union, you need divine union at the moment. We all need divine union.
I think one more.
So, but you also need Gorse. Damn. Which one can you can't take any away. They're all too good. So I'm going to take Ragged Robin away. It doesn't matter. So. And the important thing is, you don't have to do all this at home, but you've got to send us all your love into this concoction, and then we'll send it back to you in these medicine bottles and seal it with a kiss, really. So which brings me back to love politics. So what do I mean by love politics? Obviously don't want to fuck you all, at least not in that sense. So even though I think we could all do with a lot more sex, so I'm just speaking for myself. Anyway, but even without politics, love is a revolutionary act in itself. And why is love a revolutionary act? Because the first thing that we tell people we want to kind of control or govern is, or colonialize, or discriminate against, we tell them that they are not lovable, that they are not worthy of love, or at least less worthy of love than others, less worthy of empathy, less worthy of attention. And this is incredibly important because only when we feel empathy for people, they can say, well, you've got to treat me well. So in a way, it is a kind of safeguarding against treating people equally, taking away love from them. And so it's really not a coincidence that most discriminated groups, most people from marginalized groups or individuals, they all share the feeling that they're less worthy of love or less worthy than others. Or they have this idea that somebody like me can't be loved, and this isn't an individual sentence. It can become an individual problem, but first and foremost, it is a social problem, so we've got to kind of solve it in a social way, and at the moment we're not addressing that at all. And we all know that love isn't distributed equally in our society. Love is a kind of, we treat love as a privilege, which is the reason why so many people have watched the marriage of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and because this is the kind of love we invested in. And so, and this is a kind of love economy, and it's very telling for this love economy is also that we have an idea who has the power to bestow love or withhold love. And most of us have the feeling we are dependent on others of love, but we are also people who can give love, and society tells us, no, you're just at the receiving end, somebody else is controlling you. And this fear of not being loved, or to have to do an incredible amount for that love to achieve that, attain that, this fear does something to us. And this is, by the way, this is the trick with love, or with basically keeping love back. This is a political weapon, because you don't even have it doesn't have to be real, just the fear of losing love, or never getting love, or getting less love than we need is enough to kind of cripple people physically and psychologically. And so in a way, I've been talking and writing a lot about decolonization, and that means that we don't have to just decolonize the economy and politics and our theories and practices, but also our souls, and that is very important. That is a kind of an area which I am really exploring at the moment. Because if we don't learn that we are allowed to love ourselves, it is so incredibly harder to love people like ourselves. So kind of other people of color, or of gender, or of sexual orientation, or of whatever, you name it. So before we learn to love our enemies, we should start treating our friends better. I don't know who said that. I always think it's Mark Twain, but I looked it up and it doesn't seem to be Mark Twain, so maybe it was me. And Gustav Landauer, the revolutionary and dramatist Gustav Landauer, the anarchist Gustav Landauer, has said that the first revolutionary act is to treat the people we love better. And I've never been able to find this quote in Landauer's writing, so maybe I made that up too. But what I did find is that he said, state is a relation. It's a relationship between people. It's a way in which people interact. And you destroy the state by forming different relationships. And this is what this is all about. And authoritarian systems know that they have to kind of usurp love. And they have to keep people from loving each other. But they have to love a kind of king or leader or kind of nation. They have to kind of replace this love onto this entity. Then, because people who really love each other, they already live a kind of political, or at least social utopia, because they look at each other as equals. And that's central to a politics of love, to recognize the other as human, as equal, and as equally worthy of love. And to kind of say that I am as interested in your well-being that I'm in mine. Not higher, not lower, I'm as interested. I don't sacrifice myself for you. The philosopher Bell Hooks, who has influenced all this very much, and she defines love as a need to nurture each other and each other's growth, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And that is something that really, really moves me a lot. And I'm trying to run on ahead because I've already overrun my time. I want to share so much with you. It's important. So there are a couple of things, and if you look at it on a social level, and one is actually that we should become a community of memory. And this is also, there's a memory economics, whose history, whose life history is worth memorizing. Just looking at also who is worth grieving for. Public grief is also kind of well negotiated along these lines of public memory. So it is important to have a community of memory that includes us all and all our memories. And then there's also civic trust. And we might not have a politics of love, but we do live in a culture of, well, let's not say hate, but definitely fear and mistrust. We've only got to watch the news. And I've read a very interesting study about the news, and they found out that watching the news is more unhealthy than smoking. And I thought, yeah, that's actually true. Damn, I should start smoking. And the other thing is civic grace. So the willingness to relinquish political resentment in service of a common ideal and a common goal, as opposed to political resentment, which is a threat to democracy. And we haven't got a kind of culture of making mistakes and learning from our mistakes and helping each other to learn and grow. We basically, we look at each other and then you make a mistake, you're not allowed to participate in this any longer, which is the opposite, because there are all these studies about what are functional families, and functional families, dysfunctional families, we always think are the ones where everybody is hitting each other and screaming at each other. And that is not true. Dysfunctional families, you recognize dysfunctional families by boredom. Everybody's quiet because they're so afraid of making a mistake. They don't say anything. They don't even dare to venture out, because once they made a mistake, they're out. So a functional family allows each other, and they also allow for conflict. And we should learn to have better conflicts. We are incredibly poor at having conflicts. So we're living in a culture where punishment is more important than change, and we should shift that focus. And we should learn to communicate, and we should learn to communicate with people who have feelings that we don't share, because that is the way in the world, really, when we look deep enough. The I can never contain the you. That's our shared humanity. We can't contain the other. And in the 70s, love was kind of the way for the revolution, fuck for the revolution, make love not war, and all this. And at the moment, love is a kind of opposite of that. So it's kind of capitalism par excellence. So we've got to love Coke, we've got to love all our products, our new car. I do love my car, but it's not a new car, damn. And all this. We've all, or the political left has kind of a fear of love, a fear of touching the subject. And so we don't have any kind of concepts of self-love and self-care that don't again go back into consumerism. That's very easy. I mean, I buy myself something nice, that's kind of retail therapy, we all know about that. But kind of self-love and self-care that is different from that. How can we nurture ourselves? Because we need that to be able to think in a utopian way. For utopias, we need love. We can't have utopias without love. And I've spent the last years writing against so many things. I don't have to name them. You all know what I've been writing against and ranting against, and you've probably been doing the same. So, but the problem is we need to set our own agenda. We need our own themes that we talk about, how to do that and not what we are against. So we need kind of, what we can do is we can say, stop doing this, this is racist, this is sexist, this is whatever. Everybody knows how a real consensual, respectful, way of treating each other, how it works, but we really don't, and we should address that, and we should find out how it works. And we do need an appreciation of love. In capitalism, the only social values are economic values, so how much you earn, which kind of status you have in your job, and these are obviously not the only values, but they are the only ones we know of. And so we can't evaluate others. So we need a kind of system where we can say in our society, this is precious to us as a society, and we want to reward it. So we want to reward love. So we need a fair love economy, where not some people do the love work, usually, who usually does the loving work, the work of love, because they're doing it voluntarily. So they're doing it out of love. So we don't need to appreciate it. And we also need education about love, about social strategies of love. We need to learn about de-escalation, about empathy, about radical happiness, about non-violent communication, and so much more. And to attract that, and I've already talked about numbers. We had the number 3 and 9 we had number 9 and 9 divided by 3 is 3. And so I will use 3 systems. I will run through this because I haven't got enough time, but we will do them all. I'll run through this. 3 systems of attraction and healing, and attracting healing. Bear with me. So the first system is the one we ingest, we take into the body. That's the one we know best. So medicine works with that. We take something into the body to heal the body. In our case, to protect the physical body, to protect it from outside influences that stop the body from healing itself. Because I see as a wonderful thing about the body, its sole purpose is to heal itself. That is what it does. It's like a kind of machine to heal itself. And it does it incredibly well, and even medicine knows that. So it calls it our immune system. But our immune system is so much more than just a chemical process. There are so many layers to the immune system. So the immune system, all the systems that make us safe, and we talked about the vagal nerve, and Paul just said this wonderful sentence. He said, we can take away all the threat, and we still don't feel safe, because there is more to danger. And when we are threatened, when our existence is threatened, it does something to us, and we have to undo that. And that's why I'm so excited about Neha's and Siegmar's work. And they're going to do a lot more about that tomorrow, working on the vagal system. But to kind of prepare for that, what we are doing now is laying the ground for that direct physical intervention. So because you can do this touch, and we can't do that at the moment, but we can also do this sound, and you're going to do the sound, but we can also do this smell, and that is our next system. And during the Corona crisis, I really became obsessed with smell. For a while, I even had a ghost smell in my room. I didn't know there were ghosts that you could just smell. It was lovely. And I could never find the source, and it came and went. I looked for it everywhere, and it smelled a bit like cooked cabbage. And it was a nice, grandmotherly smell from my childhood. Not a pleasant smell, but somehow it was kind of comforting. And then my friend Sandra, I don't know whether you're watching, Sandra, thank you so much. So Sandra got me into essential oils in a big way, and I spent all the money I'd usually spend on going out on essential oils. And on this super diffuser here that you can't see because they're not going to make any advertisements for the brand. And it really worked. And Sandra told me that essential oils help you to concentrate, peppermint, and it did. And essential oils open your heart. It's Neroli, and it really did. And they will deblock your sinuses and all that. And they really, really did. But most of all, I fell in love with them because they stimulated a sense. And one of the senses I was still allowed to use. And when I couldn't use my hands, I could still use my nose. So in a way, they were a connection to the sensual world, and that's what I want to share with you. And that was really, really magical, because the air we breathe had suddenly become dangerous, and now healing entered me through the very same air. So the aerosols, suddenly everybody's talking about aerosols. What the hell are aerosols? They're little drops of something in the air. Little air is a solution. Aerosol, air solution. So now we're going to make our own solution of air, and you choose what you want to put into it. And this is all about collective happiness. And one of my favorite tweets comes from Sarah Fatun Heinz, and you can follow them on @Za. But what is the underslash, the under, what's the name for that?
Underscore.
Za_fa_he. And they tweet it every day. So what has made you happy today? And so it makes you think about, what has made me happy? And I'm thinking so much about what's making me unhappy, and just to stop and thinking about that every day, and trying to answer, and usually answer, oh, your tweet makes me so happy today. So, okay, what's making you happy today? And you can choose. And I've already mentioned peppermint here. We're going to do all this. We're going to continue doing this. So there's no hurry. We're going to do it all in its time.
This is starting to smell so nice here.
Yeah. So peppermint. And peppermint is also, they're all antioxidants. So we've only chosen antioxidants, and peppermint helps us to concentrate. It helps helps wounds to heal. It helps against radiation, against gastritis, against the loss of smell, one of the first symptoms of corona, against cough, against influenza, against inflammation of the throat, against Huntington, against headaches, against morbus Crohn, against MS, not my initials. Multiple sclerosis. And peppermint is called the oil of the lively heart. Here it is. And it's against depression, against anything that weighs us down, against unbearable pain, and against pessimism. So I put these here. Then we've got orange. And orange is also against fear, against influenza, against nervousness. I will repeat all this because you got to know it, because when I repeat it, you will believe me. And you think, how can an oil do this? Because it really does. Because I'm telling you, because I'm a doctor. That's why it does. So orange is the oil of plentifulness, of emotional wealth. And I want us to all share emotional wealth with each other. And then we've got tangerine. Tangerine is amazing. Tangerine is against cellulitis, that's why I put it in here. It's also against depression. It's for emotional stability. It helps our lymphatic system, our digestion. It's the oil of creativity and of happiness, and it gives you warmth and joy, and we all need warmth and joy. Then there's lemon. Surprise, surprise, lemon is good against depression. Have I told you that before? Against anything that comes via the air, that's why I've chosen it. Anything that affects your throat, stress, fear, grief, it gives us energy, it helps us when we're mentally exhausted, and loads more. Same as grapefruit. Grapefruit is also against depression. They smell so lovely, so you can smell them all, and we can all smell them. We're going to mix them together. You can get all the 3 healing ingredients, but you've got to send your wish for that. You've got to concentrate. We are distilling the oils, but also your concentrated energy. So this is more than just mixing it at home. So grapefruit against depression, against addiction, against problems with your throat, again, coughing. The oil that makes us love our bodies. That's also very important, not being allowed to love the incarnation that connects you with this life. It's really mean, isn't it? Then we've got vervain. Vervain helps us when we have a strong need to persuade others of our own point of view. So I need vervain, obviously. It helps us to listen to others and see them not just as adversaries, but as human beings with feelings and fear. And it tempers energy with love. So energy is good, but it makes the energy into something warm, and it helps with something that's very big in Germany, and I haven't heard about it. So if you're not from Germany, maybe you're not that concerned about it, but if you're German, you'll be really excited. So it helps with our circulatory system. So I've got low circulation. Everybody's talking about their low circulation, and so it helps against circulatory disturbances, and I think that's a lovely word. It gets the circle flowing, not the cycle, that too, but the circle, the circulation of the blood flowing. And then there's turmeric. In India, turmeric is good against everything.
Oh,
everything.
yes, please.
Yes, we're going to put this in, and because it's not a nice smell, and I love that.
Yes.
And people will disagree with me, obviously, and the most Indians I know will disagree loudly, but it is a smell that is strong and kind of penetrating, and it's very yellow, that is lovely, but it's difficult. So it helps against Alzheimer's, arthritis, blood clots, diabetes, inflammation, anything to do with the brain, against cancer. I'm allowed to say cancer. I'm a doctor. It helps with your skin, your liver, your nervous system, your gut. It's the oil of renewal, and that's what we need. So, and then you've got Neroli. I already said Neroli opens your heart. It's the oil of friendship, of working together, of solidarity and love. So where have I got Neroli in here? I've got 2 Nerolis, because that's so important. So two different kinds of Nerolis, one in oil form and one in water form. We're going to put them both in. We've got clary sage for hormonal balance, for cholesterol, against mood swings, good for your kidneys. For cell regeneration, it's the oil of clarity and vision. If we feel separated from the world of thought and creativity, it reconnects us to the world and to each other. And also lavender, good against fear. Candida against depression. Have I mentioned depression today? Maybe I'm just talking out my own fear. Is that too much information? I'm afraid of depression. So inflammation, hernia, herpes. I'm not worried about herpes. Against worry, any kind of problems with the heart. It's the oil when you fear that you're not being heard, not being seen. It helps you when you fear to be rejected, and that's why I've chosen it. That's why we've got to put it in there. Geranium is also against any malign cells, against hemorrhoids. It's good against wrinkles. Quite a lot of them are good against wrinkles. Good for the skin. Helps with the liver and with your libido. It's the oil of love and trust. And then there's obviously lemon myrtle. These are more than 9, but this is the last one now. It's good for the immune system. It helps the production of endorphins, and if you've got problems with your respiratory system, again, it's antifungal and antibacterial. It clears mental fog. So if your senses are blunted, and that's what it feels at the moment, my senses are blunted. I can't go out, I can't touch other people, I can't grind myself. So it absorbs this negative energy. It's good against toxic emotions. So I can leave you now. So, and like I said, the politics of love, it's not my idea. It's not even a new idea. And I'm very influenced by Bell Hooks. And Bell Hooks says that love is not an emotion. By the way, she says love is a verb. Love is what we do. And I'm just going to jump over this because, why is the time? We should
You still got time.
Condensing
still got
time, isn't it?
I'm just chopping up thyme and marjoram and oregano.
Giving me more time.
Or just to remind people, so the first ones that we talked about, you're going to get 2 bottles.
2 bottles. And
one bottle is
else.
Tincture to ingest, and the other one that Mithu just described now is oils to put in a diffuser.
Or you can put them on your skin, but not too many. So you shouldn't use them as a cream, but you can put some on your temples or some on your wrists, and then they smell good and they give you that feeling of being held in our arms, and all our arms, all the people that are here. So, and the other person I'm obviously very, very influenced by is the novelist and activist James Baldwin, who sees love as a technique of survival and resistance. And by the way, he doesn't say we must love each other. He says we should act like lovers. We cannot love everybody all the time, but we can engage with them and ourselves in ways that are informed by love. And I think that is very important in our political climate. We should act like lovers. And sociologist George Yancey calls this, I want you to listen with love. That's very important, which is a very different way of communicating. And in India, the goddess Kali, she says she wants Shiva to realize that everybody and everything has a soul that has to be respected. And I think that is something we don't get in our kind of political discussions. And love politics also means to look at ourselves in this loving way, by the way. So with this loving eye. And James Baldwin wrote that white people are loveless. And I thought, oh, can I say this here? Okay, to say it. And I thought that was very, very interesting, because there is a price we pay for power in a system that is not based on love. And Martin Luther King, who also saw whiteness as a state of lovelessness, by the way, and he says they seek their goals through power devoid of love and conscience, and power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power, on the other hand, is sentimental and anemic. So power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. And I want to write that down, but I haven't got a nice handwriting, so somebody else has got to write that down for me and put it on my wall. So when we make politics, when we engage in politics, they also have to have this idea of reconciliation after we've kind of won the political battle. So how are we going to do that? And all of them, so Martin Luther King, Gandhi, they're all talking about reconciliation. But even Nelson Mandela, who was, it wasn't non-violent the way he worked, but he said it's incredibly important to reconcile and to forgive. That's a central aspect of political solidarities. And so what does it mean, reconciliation? And especially what shall we do with the perpetrators? And we need to address that. And usually we just kind of say they should explode and disappear. I don't want to look at them anymore. And that goes as far as our justice system, so which is built on punishment and not on redemption and reconciliation. And so we have a system that works the other way, not just individuals. The whole system does it. And you can't go to court and say, someone has mistreated me and I want them to understand what they've done to me and to change. What you can say is, I want them to go to jail. And that is all. And that is a problem. So, and we got to address that. And very often when we speak about political love, we think we must make our individual hearts bigger. And that is always nice, and a bigger heart's always good for everyone. But I'm talking about structures, and I want structures that make it possible for us to interact in this life-affirming ways. And so we kind of got an idea of human beings. So if you have this kind of what are human beings, and we say it's based in love, then that will produce a different political theory and probably a very different political practice than this kind of worldview that is based on, well, hate is a bit too dramatic, but what about one that's based on the idea of fight? And or to quote the actress Rose McGowan, she says, I scare because I care. Please don't, because this is based on the idea that we've got to force people to behave socially, to behave, full stop. And I genuinely believe that this is a fallacy, and all this homo homini lupus est, so man is man's wolf, dog eat dog. That is bullshit, because it is just a theory and we believe it as if it's gospel truth, and it's called veneer theory. So only civilization makes us to behave, not to basically kill our neighbors. And once we take this veneer away, the I don't know, the real human being, the Neanderthal in all of us emerges, and we just club each other to death. And that is not the case. And we, for example, we've read Lord of the Flies. You all know Lord of the Flies. So these kids are stranded on this island. So they immediately start, well, bullying each other, killing each other, and behaving in ways that are self-destructive. And actually there is a real Lord of the Flies. So in 1965, there was a boat in Tonga, 6 boys shipwrecked on the island Atta. And they were shipwrecked there, and then over a year later, they were found and rescued. And not only had they all survived, they hadn't killed each other, they had worked in a very social way together. One of them had fallen down a crevice while trying to get food, and they had helped him up, and he had broken his leg. He couldn't move, he couldn't look after himself. They looked after him, they fed him. and then his leg had healed very well, so they were in a very, very good physical and emotional condition when they were rescued. So that is the reality of it. People usually, it's not our first instinct, well, how could I kill Siegmar? Damn, she's too far away. And it's even soldiers in the war. There's been a lot of studies, and so soldiers try not to shoot at each other. So we've got to find ways of making them shoot each other. And it is our first instinct is to not shoot another human being. And even in the American War of Independence, and they looked at the muskets, and they were loaded. Some of them were loaded 24 times. So you can only put one bullet in. That's it, and then you shoot. But while you're loading your musket, you can't shoot. So if anybody looks at you, I'm loading, I'm still doing it. So they kept loading and reloading and reloading because they wanted to avoid shooting each other. I'm talking a little bit, and because time's running away and we've got to do our last ritual, but we've also started a bit later, so about empathy versus compassion, and that sounds very Christian, but that's not what I mean. Because empathy usually means we have empathy with people we recognize as similar to us. I have empathy with you because I think you are like me. And I hate all others. That's usually what it implies. And compassion means I have this empathy with you, even though you might be different, even though I don't agree with you, even though I think you're actually not a nice person. I have compassion with you because I think every human being is worthy of that compassion. And the way to kind of break this compassion is by disgust, by Martha Nussbaum calls it, the philosopher Martha Nussbaum calls it projective disgust. And she explains that disgust is projected from one object to another by a totally irrational way of magical thinking. So if, I don't know, Hitler had worn this apron, would I still wear it, even though it might have been cleaned? Or even if he just bought it and never worn it? Of course I wouldn't, because I've got this magical thinking of, I don't want to touch anything that he might have touched. So what are the things that we find disgusting? A kind of animality, people who behave like animals, smells, contamination, nearness to death. So this is why we attribute all these to groups we want to evaluate. They behave like enemies. They smell, they're smelly, they might infect us with diseases. And very often that goes hand in hand with implying that that group has a deviant sexuality, like the guy I mentioned before, so the woman who said, oh, all these Muslim men, they rape German women, so implying this, that it's not the case. It's a myth, it's a social story, it's a narrative. And Walt Whitman suggested that society might exist without disgust if we all established a healthier relationship to our body and the bodies of others. And this is why I'm talking about bodies here. And this is why I find it short-sighted that we are combating a virus by cutting all our physical contact with other human beings. And I'm not going out and licking all of you, don't worry. And but even if I could, and I could show you a negative test result, you wouldn't like me coming up to you and licking you. My guess is that this is more so now than it would have been a year ago, because at the moment we are kind of trained in fearing each other, fearing contamination by each other, and that is a narrative that does something to us, and we've got to address that, and we've got to have counter narratives. And we also know this from research that disgust blocks equal political respect. And so before we talk to each other, we probably have to touch each other, breathe in the same air for a while before we talk about any kind of content. And at the moment we do the opposite. So we need to mingle our bacteria. Generally, people need to mingle their bacteria to be able to survive as a species. And we need each other in sickness and in health so much more than we know. So yes, and this was, by the way, this was a wedding dupatta, so in sickness and in health, it's all connected. There's method in my madness. And when you take something that makes you resistant, it does make you resist not just to viruses, but also to social viruses. And fear as a social virus, disgust as a social virus. So the social virus, that human contact is dangerous, that is in itself dangerous. And therefore I call upon you all to put all your wishes for a shared future into the earth with the seeds of love, and also your grief. So we've got the seed here. Here are the seeds. We've got it all here. And the thing about burying it, we're going to bury all our wishes for the future in the earth, is if you're putting it somewhere where it can be taken apart and can be decomposed and transformed, because we grieve for something because we love it. And the earth, and let's reconnect to the earth's bacteria, because also research has shown that the bacteria in the soil, they're good against depression. So let's get some antidepressants from the earth. And to show you that I really trust you, I've collected my hair. This is real human hair. I've collected my hair since Siegmar asked me to do this together with her and to participate in this project. And I've collected my hair and I've made hair rings, because else it would be just a clump of hair. It wouldn't look so nice out of it. And I will sacrifice my hair to become earth and to nurture the seeds of love. So, and it's got the same color.
That's beautiful.
We tested that before. And this is actually a ritual, and it works. So be very conscious of what you wish for. And if you have prepared at home, that will be great, and you should do it together with us. But if you haven't, it doesn't matter. So you just send your feelings, and that works just as well. So we're going to take some earth and put the seeds into the earth. So we're going to take basil, because basil is incredibly important for that, but also some local seeds or local flowers that grow locally, because this is not about individual love, it's a love ritual. This is a ritual for collective love. So we're going to make seed bombs to plant love in all over the town, the towns where you are, where we all are. So you can mix any other seeds, but you have to put some basil, and that's very important. And you can plant the flowers in a flower pot if you're at home. But before you do that, think about the things you want to preserve, the way of living that you want to preserve, about your wish for a collective future, and make it very clear, formulate it in a sentence, and write it on a piece of paper, preferably on a piece of paper torn from your favorite book. And I know that's sacrilege, but we've also got to sacrifice something. This is magic. And anyway, write the wish down, put the paper into the earth with the seeds. And I've brought some of my favorite books all over here, so we can tear pages out, preferably pages without any writing on them, because I really like them. Rereading is also a magical way, and the books are never the same. So write that wish down, put the paper into the earth with the seeds while you sing a love song to it. And we will do that in a minute. Matty and I will do that in a minute. We'll sing a love song to the seeds. And that is very important. Think loving thoughts, feel how you will feel when your wish is realized. Feel how your community, your loved ones, your friends will feel when the wish is realized. And afterwards, look well after your plant and feel the love every time you water it, and tell it, this is the magic formula, sono innamorata, grazie. Sono innamorata, grazie. And if you use any of the seed bombs we make, visit your seeds of love and say, sono innamorata, grazie to them. Talk to them. And if it's very dry and summer, water them. And you've got to do this now.
So,
yeah. How can we do this? You're going to do this while...
Exactly. We're going to be cooking the whole 2 days, basically, and finishing these things that we're going to send to you.
So you can send us your wishes. You can send them today, tonight, and we're probably going to do the seed bombs tomorrow.
Write down your wish for a collective love and put it in the chat, and we're going to write it out and bury it in the earth that we're going to make the seed bombs with. Yeah. Right?
But you've got to keep thinking about the earth. We need all this energy. This is all about intent. This is magic with intent. This is all about intent. Because the earth is the common ground we share. Okay. Turn this off.
So this goes in. This is going to be the distilled marjoram and oregano. We're going to be continuing. And then we're going to continue with the oil for the skin and the diffuser and start with seed bombs. Meanwhile, we're starting also the second break. Again, we start with a song this time, which is the song for the earth. And then there's 10 minutes break, and then we come back with Eroca.
senselessness on the air, on the air. Upon the air. Well, you know how it goes. Your head to your toes. Yeah, everyone knows. Thou shalt not spread fear, for fear does fragment the mind. Lay a hopelessness upon the air, upon the air, upon the air. Upon the air. Man, with me under your wings. Let your light shine down deep in your heart. May the Spirit guide you through all of these things. Is a stepping stone. Just another leap of faith. Take it with a sense of having passed through, having passed through, having passed through, having passed through. But may you pass through where you pass through. May you pass through where oh, may the wind be under your wings. Let the light die down deep in your head. May the Spirit guide you, let it guide you now. May you pass through well. May you pass through well. Yes, halfway down, halfway down, halfway down, halfway down, halfway down. Pause.
just want to drink this too.
My mic was off.
Oh, by
Okay.
the way, this is...
Do you have your mic on?
Yes, I hope so, yes. I've turned it on.
Okay,
I
great.
don't know whether you can hear me, but so we keep mixing everything, but we're going to go to Eroca now. And you don't just have to put it in the diffuser, you can just spray it into your room or put it into a corner so you think, oh, something creeps there, something lurks there, it eats up my energy. It will also help with that. Don't drink it, even though it looks like orange juice.
Right, Eroca.
Hi.
Wow.
Yes, I did a costume change. Yeah.
Wow.
I'll just give you a tour. So we're gonna do an extra special Femme meditation. I'll go into what Femme meditation is, where that practice comes from, but I will first explain my outfit because it matters, okay? So I've got a velvet leopard hair thing that is shared with the femmes that are in my Toronto-based coven. Given to me by Carly Boyce, who is not here, but is the person that has done Femme meditation with me probably like most of the time, and the one that we've been running through the pandemic. So it's a little bit of her with me right now. I'm wearing a silk one-piece unisuit. Doop. Bam, 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 you're welcome. That I got when Glam, my partner, who died while we were working on this project, we got it in Winnipeg, and we were like, no way, this is definitely not silk, because I didn't just get a silk amazing unisuit for $5 at the St. Vincent de Paul. And then I put it in the washer and the dryer, and then it was like, then we realized it was silk, and we felt stupid. But I call this look Lady Janitor Goes to the Prom, and Lady Janitor is an alter ego of mine in performance. You can't see my feet, but I'll bring them up here so you can see my feet. That's a red bottom shoe. I'll just take it off so you can really see it. The shoe is amazing. Just gonna give you a little circle. I'll talk a little bit maybe about grief season. But for me, I call grief season the September 20, for me, my most main grief season is September 26th through October 26th, and Glam's birthday is September 26th, 1988, and their death anniversary is October 26th, 2016. And so that period of time is, it's not like the only, how do you say, it's not like the only time that grieving happens. But if anyone's lost their close people, or multiple close people, we know that death anniversaries are really hard. And the first birthday or the first like family celebrations that happen after we lose our people is extra hard. And then sometimes, depends on how long it's been since you've lost your folks. Yeah, that period of time can be real intense. And I just also wanted to share that this period of time was extra intense because 2016 was also when Trump was elected. So in terms of what the collective dread, as well as the personal dread, the collective grief and pre-grief for trans folks moving into pre-fascism that has been the last 4 years in the US, there's been multiple layers of grief going on. And so, yes, I'm explaining my outfit, but I'm also like giving you a little bit of time-based context. Extending the outfit further, I'm dressed as the element of fire. These are my elemental fire nails. I feel like, let's see, can we see them? Okay,
Yes.
so, yeah, so this one, can you see the like, it looks like I have scales a bit here.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And this one is smoke. And this one is layered fire decals. And this one is a triangle of fire. Oh yeah. And this one is the most beautiful and the most difficult to see.
Oh yeah.
It's a hand holding fire. Can you see it?
Amazing.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Gorgeous.
Incredible. And then there's this one which came apart, and so I was like, oh, it's also dipped in blood. A little bit more. And what is another one? I'm really featuring these because Natalia at Adore Nails on College Avenue, if anyone ever slides through Toronto, Ontario, Canada, she's a femme genius. Okay, so let me talk to you a little bit about what femme meditation is. It's a practice that I began with a bunch of femmes all over the planet because up until literally COVID, I haven't been anywhere for more than 2 months for close to 10 years because of moving around and working and traveling and training in jiu-jitsu, as well as teaching, as well as choreography, as well as all these things. You know, that whole capitalist imperative to be a nomad project that we do in this, the form of performance. And so it was just like, how do we find ways to use in different places, but specifically with Glam and with Carly and with other folks, we were like, how do we like actually guard ourselves against the pain of white supremacist hetero cis patriarchy, and really going through this this idea of femme adornment as both as armor and as well as like collective care. What does it mean to take care of ourselves? What does it mean to take care of each other? What does it mean to allow space for us to take care of ourselves while other people are taking care of each other? So what are collective care spaces? And so the way that this OG originally started was folks would come over and we would do nails for hours, because this was before you had like the gel thing where you can put it in the little like cooker, you put your little nails in there and you take them out and then you're like, great, I can totally tie my shoes or wipe my ass or whatever. But it used to be that nails had to be, you had to sit there and be in a state of femme rest in order to wait for the next thing. So I just want to encourage anyone who is at home, I will give you time to go do this. Do you have hair to remove from your body? Do you have any lipstick, eye makeup? People are really into like doing their brows these days. And I know that you're going to bed, but think about like you're going to bed with your fantasy. So if you have anything like that you feel like you would like to femme adorn yourself with over the next amount of time, I'm very bad at time, so maybe someone will help me out with that. So I'm gonna, while you are doing that, like going to get a hairbrush, or you feel like braiding your hair, or you feel like trying on a bunch of earrings and looking at yourself looking so goddamn fly in this Zoom, I know, or just laying there and being the sweet femme slug that you are, I support it all. In addition, I just want to be clear that femme is not, it is not body exclusive. Everybody has divine feminine in their sweet, sweet bodies. And that's what we're cultivating. How do I, what's the difference between touching myself gently and touching myself softly? What's the difference between getting something out of my teeth with a fucking sweet ass nail or doing it with a toothpick? Like, give yourself a way to hold things with the divine feminine in mind. Okay, great. So while you do that, it's really, I mean, also I'm going to take this off because I'm going to tell you about, like the whole thing, but it is going to take me at least a minute to disrobe the top part of my outfit. So like, if you need to go right now, like now's a great time to go. Okay. So yeah, I'm not going to say anything important. I'm going to actually, yeah. I'm basically going to do an uncomfortable striptease with giant nails, but it's not like going to be that hot. But maybe, actually maybe it is going to be that hot. I don't know.
Du? Mache ich jetzt hier einfach den Alkohol rein und dann die ganzen Tropfen.
Ach so,
one of the things that you are like really not allowed to do with giant nails is buttons. So for the last 2.5 months that I've been making these videos, buttonfly jeans have been 100% off limits. And I actually just have to stop talking because it's going to take literally all of my energy to undo this button.
Eroca,
Baby.
do you want us to remind people that this is a good time to think of their questions around grief?
I totally want that. Any questions you have around grief or death, it's not specific to death, but it can be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this is what's going to happen. You can send us your questions around grief, and Eroca will take them in.
So the thing also around these questions, we like send all the questions that you have as they come up while we're talking, while this is happening. I'm doing high stakes femme adornment. I'm going to be tattooing myself. Up until this point in meditation, I see my hand. Okay, so I have a tattoo. This is where it's like boobs fest. We're in Europe, everybody's topless there anyway, it's fine. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna show you the tattoo.
Einfachsten. Oben abmachst.
Zeit.
Oh. You know when you're just like, I really prefer my boobs to be cold, but whatever. Okay, and I also don't have any muscles anymore, or I don't have the same kind of muscles because I'm not able to train in jiu-jitsu. So this tattoo, which starts here and then goes down in a line across my whole bod, was done in the show called Truth Teller, which is the first in a series of 3 shows that I was kind of telling you a little bit about earlier. And that's around the time when we first started doing femme meditation, both like in different cities and also just like doing femme adornment as a way of talking about hard things. So how do we have a discussion about death and grief while we're doing our nails or while we're doing our eye makeup? So we can be looking in the mirror and doing that and like, I'm a tarot reader and I come from a line of healers and folks who are of Lakota and settler ancestry in the States. And my mom says tarot is like the in-between. It's like, this is the material that we're using to have this discussion, to have this interaction, to have this encounter and relation. And so basically, how do we use femme practice as a way of, as the cards in a way? So that's our in-between. So that's the like short, not short intro. I have never tattooed myself. Since the pandemic started, me and Carly Boyce, who is a very, like, you know, best femme, she's been in all of the performances that I've done. And we used to tattoo me with a sewing needle. So very jail chic, very prison industrial complex chic. But now we've stepped our fucking pussies up and we're using real tattooing needles. So if Lucy from Montreal, if you're watching, you were asking me what we're using. It's these. Boop. Okay. So, all right, we've got that. Now we're gonna get all our little pieces together. India ink, you can get it wherever. I mean, I think pretty much at all of the art stores. I use my meds bottles, my meds caps as the thing to hold it in after it's been sanitized, obviously. Boop. Put that right over there. Yeah, and so there's, you know, there's people who really have tattooing as a practice and are tattoo artists. I am not that. The tattoos that I have and the tattoos that I've done are only ritual-based tattoos. So this one, unfortunately, this is going to be actually probably the most painful part of my body that we're doing this on, which is not ideal, but it is where I've gotten on the tattoo. Yeah. So I'm going to be doing this part here over over, you know, where all of the nerves are. 1 second, just gonna get a piece of. So in a possible world, you could be self-tattooing right now. I felt like because we're in the lockdown, it really makes sense to be clear about how we have to support ourselves. That's a little off. I'm probably only gonna get to here. And that's like really lucky if I get that far. All right. So if folks have questions that we don't get to, those will roll over into the Femme meditation that I do on Instagram every fortnight. So that will be when we do it. I think we're going to start with questions that are specifically from the crew who's working on the show. So from Neha and Siegmar and Mithu, because I think they've got dibs because we've been trying to set all this stuff up over the internet. So is everybody ready? Yes, file those nails, baby. Yeah, I don't know who you are, but I'm loving you filing your nails. If anyone's doing their, yeah, like adorn yourselves, babies. Okay. So the way that this will work, Siegmar, are you ready?
Mithu is actually going to give the first question.
But I'm going to adorn myself first. So
adorn yourself, baby.
Yes.
Give me those Chriss vibes.
I want to have something of fire on me as well, so I can be in tune with you. So when I'm thinking about grief, because it is.
Okay, hang on. We're starting 1 second. I'm gonna start being in pain. Cool.
Okay.
Great.
Oh dear.
It's okay. High stakes.
I would love to say I feel your pain, but I don't.
/ grief. No one actually feels your pain. We have to make settings for it. Here we go. Okay, I'm with you. Go.
The grief is still a way of still connecting with what is lost, or what we're in the process of losing, or what we're grieving about. So what is a good way to keep that connection after the grieving process is done? Because I notice that I get stuck in grief because I think once I stop grieving, the connection will be severed forever.
Oof. Yup. I might, because this is actually really a lot of information coming into my body and sensation. I'm going to get you to say it again. It doesn't have to be, so kind of give me like the cliff notes.
So the quick notes is grief connects me to the entity, to what has happened.
That which you're grieving.
What I'm grieving about. So I'm worried of losing that connection once the grieving process is done, once I'm through the grief, and how can I keep that connection?
Yes.
Without having to be in pain forever.
Yeah, shit, fucking real. What this is making me think about is actually, because I was just talking about death anniversary, it's making me feel like the experience of like the difference between the first death anniversary, the second death anniversary, like the second year since they had died, and then the third year. And as that, because it is like that, those anniversaries, sorry, I got something in my eye. Those anniversaries are such markers, and they show us where we were and where we are now and all of this. And I feel like, in a way, this thing of like, if I stop grieving in this way that like Neha was saying, this like immobilized, like to be immobilized by grief, to be in that sort of the highest level or whatever, the largest, the biggest part of the wave. First of all, we can't stay in the biggest part of the wave all the time, but the feeling that if I stop doing that kind of grieving, that I will, that they go away, that the person that I'm grieving, or that what I'm grieving, no longer exists. And I feel like it's a little bit like if I talk about suicide, then I'm going to make people suicidal, this feeling. And I feel like that's not, I got to stop doing speaker view because I can't see y'all and it's makes me feel weird. Okay. So this thing of like, okay, if I talk about suicide, then the person's gonna commit suicide. I don't think that this is what's happening. I feel like it's, whew, God damn it, this hurts, y'all. So it's actually really hard to think and do this at the same time. I'm gonna take another angle, and the feeling of like the person who I'm grieving or the person who I'm loving before they're dead, while they still have a body, while they still have material and connection to Earth and this planet and this plane, my love goes and it bounces off their body and comes back to me. And when they die, when their body is no longer the home for their soul, for example, then my love goes and it doesn't bounce back, and it just keeps going and going and going, and it feels like this abyss of like a misconnections, but worse. So I feel like we have this relationship to the loving that's so material. And so then the relationship to grief becomes a new material, but it's a material that's about longing and absence rather than a material that's about what bounces back. And so I feel like that first year of like acute grief holds me in this place of, oh yeah, so then I must have really loved them because I'm performing my grief in a way that's recognizable to me and performable to the world. And I feel like it's almost like the difficulty of grieving the grief that after like the second year, because the first year is I basically feel like it's very hard to even be alive. The idea of being alive without your person, whether it's a family member or partner, it feels like for me, it felt like it actually made no physical sense. And so there's like this sense making that goes on in the beginning. And then it's almost like once the sense making has happened, then you have to grieve grieving. And in my experience, grieving, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
There's really no, there's so few roadmaps for grieving, just the actual grieving of our people, but then to have to handle the fact that you might actually be okay without them. And this is, I think, another layer of grief that we have to hold, and figure out how to make space for the like pre-grief, the grief of losing our person, and then the grief of it not being the only thing that encompasses our emotional lives. Woo! Okay, yeah. Does that answer a question?
Definitely makes me cry.
Yeah. I think the feeling of it being so, I think that we've talked a lot about embodiment, and when we talk about embodiment and consent, we have like, we really like work in there's so much in the ideas realm, and I think that grief, or love for that matter, which we take for granted, is so, it's so visceral. So, yeah. Anyway. Your lipstick looks amazing, Anya. Next question, I think, unless we, yeah. Okay.
We have here a question. I don't know if folks want me to read out their names, so for the moment I won't. The question is, do you connect your physical pain with the emotional?
You mean, just for a clarification on that human's question, like, you mean right now while I'm tattooing myself? Or you mean...
Well, I don't know. That person needs to answer now. Do you
All
mean
right,
right now?
Georgia Lewis, sorry, I'm
Yes.
calling you out.
Well, I
right
guess
now.
everybody can see it anyway.
Okay, cool. So, do I connect physical pain with emotional? I don't, yeah, like, I just think Descartes fucked everybody, and we talk about this kind of a lot. Zinzi, you look great doing your thing. This idea of like mind-body separation is such a tool of colonialism and such a like massive problem. Oh, they're saying something else. I was asking whether you tap into your grief and emotional pain by making it real. Well, I mean, I almost feel like, duh. I'm literally involved in like I feel like bringing our, I often think about when I think about what is sensation, when I think about sensation as information, I can say in a way any kind of pain or sensation or information that comes to my body, whether that's from my dead or from actual physical pain. I'm putting this in my mouth because it's my body and I feel okay about it. My body, my choice, feminism. I can't do that when I'm tattooing someone else, but I can when it's me. I feel like if we can ground, like if we can actually, like in an electricity way, sink our teeth into something, then we're able to, it's like when people, for example, I'm going to use another weird example because this is where I'm going today. When people make an album, like when people used to make a music album, it would be a recording. It would be a record of people in a room. It was a period of time and the time code is noticeable and real. And it was a recognizable, in a way, recognizable structure of it went from here to there. The time started there and it went there. And so I think that this feeling of making it real by locating it in my body and in a recognizable conversation or a recognizable structure that I can live and move inside, then I don't know that I'm answering the question right, but it's definitely making it real. And I look back in a way, like at this tattoo, and I look back and I think, oh yeah, I know what questions people asked me in that section. I remember the show where we did that. I remember, I'll use a term from Nita Little, who is an amazing dance and somatics elder and colleague of mine, who talks about remembering, but like about how do I bring myself back to my body parts in a way, like how do I remember myself? What are the members of my body that are missing? And how do I remember them? And so I feel like when doing a practice that is, and I mean, the thing is, pain is a very loose thing. And I feel like I'm like, Neha Chriss, talk about that, because pain is also like a very wild area of research, because it has so much to do with what your relationship to sensation is. And so I would, instead of saying pain, I would, I like to replace that word with sensation. So how do I remember both in the idea and the content of what was said, and how do I also allow myself to recognize that those thoughts are body parts of my body that are coming back to me? I don't know if that answered your question, as I never know if any of my things answer anyone's questions, but yeah. Whew. Here we go, folks. This is where we're at.
Wow. You're doing it.
I'm doing it. I was just like, this shit's gonna be fucking horrible. And no, it's actually, it's, you know, amazing what a little deep conversation about real stuff will do to the changing of what it feels like to have information coming into your body.
So,
Siegmar.
Eroca, I have a question. Well, I mean, all of this is just prompts to think. There is no, I don't expect an answer in the sense of response or what. But so when my sister Susanna died, everybody always said, yeah, you will always be with us, because she had a very conscious death. And we were able to actually tell her these things. You will always be with me and so on. And then at one point I thought, well, there's also something that I want to give her, to say that I want to be with her always. So there was a little part that I said, take that.
Yeah.
In the hope that I will be experiencing it from her perspective, this whole grief thing. And also this whole life thing. And that's something that feels like that part is still gone. And that's a kind of intermediate, and I'm wondering, like, feeling that very real, I'm wondering, like, how can I give this part of myself to other situations of grief? Like, for example, uncertain future, like how do I put, or what would it do? Like, what can we learn from this idea of, like, they're not just always going to be with us, but we're also going to be with them, and what can we learn from that other perspective? So how can we learn from that?
I mean, am I ever going to be able to get through anything I ever say without talking about Donna Haraway? God damn it. Maybe no. This makes me feel super strongly about the quote from her making kin on the sleuthing. There's that word sleuthing. If anyone knows how to say that word, it's a wild one. But kin making and the idea of who or what is kin to me, the definition that she proposes and puts forward is to whom one is actually responsible. And this is, if we use this definition, to whom one is actually responsible, then it can't be a one-way. Does that make sense? Like, so there is no such thing as a one-way street in relation or something like this, right? And so if I am in a space of being ready to respond, then, and I think this thing too is like, it makes me think of like ways that queers talk about, oh yeah, that's my queer kin and whatever, but actually, how do we actually show up for each other in community? And so this thing that you're talking about with you and Susanna, it's like, it's a little bit like, don't forget me. How do I ask you, how do I hold the dead accountable to the memory of the living? And I think this is something that we don't always bring forward. And again, I'm not sure if I'm getting what you're saying, but it feels like this thing where we have this thing where we're like, oh yeah, the dead, they're so special and so whatever. And they're just like, the dead are just like some people that don't have bodies anymore. And so I feel like so many dead folks get off the hook and gets like, oh, they were so great. Like as if as soon as they stop having the soul and body project being the same thing, that all of a sudden you're not allowed to talk shit about them or hold them accountable. And it feels a little bit like, how do we practice while we're living being a good ancestor and practice as our people pass, holding on their memory, but also being like, what is it about our relation that continues, or something like this? Like, does this make, am I talking around the what you're saying, Siegmar?
Yeah, it actually helped me to think of, like, in relation to future, for example, it means like, how can the future be held accountable for the present also? So it's not like a complete break and say, yeah, we need to change, but how do you look back and are accountable for what is happening in
Right,
the
and
present.
so it makes me think about like social justice circles and where, you know, I mean, like where folks are just like very, very willing to take down white supremacist heteropatriarchy on a political, massive collective level, but then in their like daily and intimate relations are fucking overriding people's rights. I mean, like in intimate partnerships, and I mean, like huge amounts of misogyny and difficulty, and like the kinds of, and how are you doing it? And how are you practicing it? And how are you being responsible to what you want and what you are making in the world on a collective level in a very personal day-to-day, like, are you doing the dishes? I feel like, how is the labor spread in your home? How are you showing up for racial and trans justice and earth justice, like in every part of your world, right? So it's not just like what we're expressing, it's also like what we're living with, like what's on the table, what's on all of the tables, kind of. Yeah. Anyway, a thought. Oh, Neha, you look so beautiful. My God. Stop. Like it. Oh, I miss you bitches. Fuck. Okay. Next question.
Neha, do you have a question? There you go.
I do. Oh, should I ask it here? Is it okay?
Yeah, you can ask it out loud. Yeah. And then,
have you ever given up on grief, or has grief given up on you? And, you know, for any particular value you have of perhaps becoming frustrated and or disinterested and or just at a stage, you know?
I mean, what sort of resonates there is like, sometimes you get tired, right? Like, woo, yeah, we're gonna be doing, if I don't cry, I'm going to be amazed if I don't cry. I'm gonna talk about this first in terms of the pandemic, and then I'm gonna like reverse engineer this. I feel like with the pandy, there's this assumption, early pandy, so like March, April, May, that there was like an ability to continue to have relations in the ways that we had relations before. And then I feel like the shift has happened when people are very deep in the second wave, and like the recognition that no, it's actually not. And I think when I say people, I don't mean chronically ill people. I don't mean Indigenous people living on the res. Like, I don't mean like Black folks that are in the street, because I'm basically talking about people who have like a level of proximity privilege to not already constantly being in a state of deep grief. Because I think it's a thing that I feel like talking about in terms of grief fatigue. Like, when I think about like folks who've lost, I'm going to talk about my brother. So my brother is a really amazing human, but in 1 year he lost 17 people. And what does it do? What does it do to us to lose 17 people in a year? What does it do to our capacity? What does it do to our capacity? And I think what it does in a way to our capacity is it numbs us, because we can talk about this in terms of polyvagal theory, is that sometimes it's like, wow, that's a lot of heartbreak. And I really think of heartbreak as preparation for losing our loved ones. So whenever you're going through, if you haven't already lost people who are close to you, like send a thank you gift to the universe to your ex who treated you real bad. Like those bad breakups, I'm telling you right now, it's training to be, those are practices of understanding how to be when you don't want to be. So I think that it's just like this assumption that we have about our capacities lowering. And so I feel like I notice in my, oh, sorry, I'm doing a really hurty part, so I can only be like, pop, 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 pop. I'm gonna take a little breather. Shout out to Casey Nichols, my brother, who has had an incredible amount of death in his life. So yeah, when I think that we go into the fight, flight, or freeze response, and I have absolutely gone into some of all of those. My go-to is definitely freeze, which can be like a numbness, or going and being under a tree and not addressing human people very often. I kind of feel like it's very strange that I feel so prescriptive today. Because I, like, for those who know me, like, I'm not a prescriptive kind of guy, but the way that people in COVID, like, people are like, oh, I have to go outside and take a walk. Like it's you can go outside and take a walk, go and feel the sun on your face, go be in with trees. It's as if during COVID, like, folks realize that, like, they live in the world. And for me, I feel the thing that I feel really about when I am in a place of inability to hold anything more. So like kind of this grief fatigue thing. When I'm past that, I feel like I have to go and be with tree people. I have to go and be with trees. I have to go try and submerge myself in water. My mom is always like, yeah, this is a thing that I have, like, in terms of, like, I talk about, like, nature drag practice. And it's just like, you know, you're never too much for the diva of the wind. Like, your feelings are never too much for a forest. Your feelings are never too much for a body of water under which you can dunk your body. Your feelings of grief are never too much. And so this idea of being too much, like too much emotion, too much grief, too much, that's not an imposition of our being in these bodies on this land that we're on and in this time. That's definitely a social imposition. So yeah, I feel like a lot of the prescriptions for coping that feel kind of ridiculous in a way, like, oh, go outside, oh, you know, get the sun on your face. It actually is what keeps us alive. And a simplification of what we are doing on this planet is putting our feet on the ground or something. Anyway, I don't know. How does that feel, Neha?
I'm super impressed you got through that without, like, bawling.
Bitch. I guess we can do one more. Yeah?
Is there another one?
You can also write them and I will address them, like, in the future. So if it feels like it's too much to do it right now, that's also okay.
Have you ever had the feeling, how does it all make sense? I don't get this. I still don't get this. It makes me personally, just stumps me. I think, why am I doing all this if it's all gonna end? I mean, it sounds absolutely stupid, but that is really the case. So
I love you.
still life after this. We'll meet each other again. We'll be happy. Will everything be all right in the end?
Wow. I mean, I don't know if okay, I'm trying to I don't know that I've ever imagined things were okay. I haven't autobiographied a simple project. So I think the feeling of things being all right is out of whack on this planet at this time. We don't actually have there's no such thing as a neutral, right? And there can, whoo, dang. I'm very impressed with myself.
I'm very impressed by you too.
I can't believe I got through so much of it. I'm just cleaning it up now. I feel like I shouldn't add
well,
more.
The thing is actually, it's a bit like Oscar Wilde. So everything will be all right in the end, and if it's not all right, it's not the end. So even if it's not all right now, I still believe in something, in some coming together, something. I don't know what it is. I genuinely believe deeply in there's sense in this life. There is a reason why we're alive. It's not just an accident, and death is just something that stumps me. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And if there's a reason, what's death doing in there? I don't know.
Well, I'm not claiming to be well, I know. Let me just tell you.
Great. That's up.
But I do feel like I don't actually see death as a problem to be solved at all. I feel like it's I think my partner's going to be getting home from working out, so PS, welcome to COVID. I don't feel like I'm trying to get out of death. And I don't feel like I'm trying to I feel like people have this thing trying to cheat death or trying to get out of it or trying to avoid it.
That's me.
Huh?
That's me, yes.
Did you say
right.
not? Sorry, Mithu, did you say
I said, yes, that is me. Yes, absolutely.
Right, okay. I was like, really? And that question?
No,
but
right.
no, I feel like it's, I don't know how we can eat and not think about death. I don't know how, I'm thinking about eating a peach because I'm a pervert. So I'm eating a peach and I digest it and then I poop it out. It becomes something else. We're transformation machines, not machines. We are one of the things involved in the process of transformation that's constantly ongoing. So I wore eye makeup so that if I did cry, it would be really dramatic. But yeah, I feel like it has so much to do with what is the story of being alive, how we got here, and what we're supposed to be doing here. So what is the origin story of your religious practice, of your ethical practice, of where you come from, and your people you come from, and also what is the around you life and death project. Just feel like for so many folks, my folks included, there's so much death, there's not an imagination of that being something that doesn't happen, or that it doesn't happen to us. I don't know. This one is a stumper. I feel like I should put it to me and Carly next time.
There is one comment when Neha in the beginning talked about grief as an entity seeking a dwelling and about wandering and nomadic grief that seemed to resonate with you. It did with me. Could you talk about what resonated?
Yes, and I feel like I need to keep tattooing myself because otherwise I'm being rude to the project I'm engaged in. Yeah, this idea of, and this, Neha, maybe is what you're talking about, right? Is like, okay, so it's as if like grief is in a certain part of my, for example, when I'm in an acute state of grief, grief is my whole body. The dwelling is everywhere I am, everything I'm in proximity to. There is no outside, right? The dwelling is whole. And then I feel like this idea, and again, like, I don't know if this is what you meant, but the idea of this, that it moves, that like, okay, like when people go on maternity leave and then like they have to go back to work, we have this as an idea that you go back to work because your baby, I don't know, it's a fucked up system, but like somehow your baby is more able to take care of itself, which is bullshit. So if we think of our grief baby, like at what point is our grief baby able to take care of itself without our constant care? And I think that is so much to do with how much agency and we have in the dying of our loved ones and how much agency they had in the lives and their deaths. Because when we're talking about grieving a loved one, we're talking about grieving not just the person and our relation with them, but also the systems and oppressions and often really painful circumstances under which we lost them. And so in my experience, I've had to put the grief that has to do with that in another place. And I've had to practice what is the separation between the grief that I'm actually feeling that belongs to me and like if I think about me and Glam, we were prepared. We knew they were going to die. They were dying of cancer. They were dying. Like it wasn't like maybe they'll live. And it was, fast, but not so fast over like 1 year since it was terminal, right? So we were preparing. But what was not being prepared was how shitty their family was going to be, what it's like to be misgendered as you're dying, what it's like to be disrespected. And so like the pain of a lot of kinds of betrayal. And so there's something about like the inability to be prepared for the myriad problems, like I also feel like the closest people are always the ones that are responsible for the stupid fucking minutia of the dead person's stuff and legal things, all of this. And so for some people, I think that feels like a process of grief. And for others, it means that they have to put their grief as an object in another place for safekeeping for later. And so that's kind of what I was thinking of a little bit, Nia, when you were mentioning that it's like, where do we put it? What are the ways that we put it in other places for safekeeping for later? And then hold ourselves to account to return to it because it doesn't go away. Boop.
So, babes, it's 11:10.
So it's time to close the day, baby. I'm just going to clean this up and then we'll clap.
Just a sec, because I don't want to say something afterwards. We're going to keep the room open for another 20 minutes. Is that okay? So we're going to keep the room open for 20 more minutes, and everybody who wants to stay is more than welcome to stay and have a chat. If you feel this is enough and you need to go immediately, that's also fine. We will meet again tomorrow for those who come tomorrow and continue.
And for folks who have any questions that end up coming up around anything we've talked about or stuff that we obviously missed because eternity and infinity, feel free to put those in the chat, or you can write them and you can see me and Carly finish this in about 2 weeks. Thank you so much. I'm going to close and then I will go away and come back because closing means real things. But if everyone who can hear can turn their cameras on, And we're going to close together.
Shall we also say to everybody, now it's the moment to unmute your mics so we can actually hear each other, because the closing is, ta-da.
Yeah. Ta-da! It's the simplest clothing. I thought it was very interesting because Mithu mentioned the 333, and 9 in my lineage is a closing number, is a number to close. And so we will clap together 9 times. If you go over and you're like, oh no, I was moved by the moment, then go to 18, okay? But we'll try to go together. You can also snap if you're like, I'm too tired for clapping. You can snap. Okay? And we'll take a deep breath together, and then I will go, and we'll go. Okay? Inhale. Exhale. And thank you, and very nice job. Synchronized clap.
Thanks.
Hi. I'm going to go away and come back to Babe Threat, just for you to know, because I'm going to take them.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. And hi. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Beautiful. Oh my God, you're so beautiful.
Yeah, it was lovely looking at you caring after yourself. That was incredibly moving.
So this is the moment which normally in the theater is you go get a drink and then you chat. So I'm going to go get a drink and then we chat. I'll be back in a sec. Mithu, do you want a beer?
No, I've got to drive, but I would like something to drink.
I'll bring you.
Have they got appetizer?
Yeah.
Bye, Steve. Nice nails.
Thanks. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Tschüss, bis morgen.
Tschüss. Danke, dass ihr da wart. Danke, dass du da warst.
Wohl. Achso, ich habe noch keinen Öffner.
This is starting.
Anik,
Ja.
I have to show you how I do this. Are you there? Where's Anik?
Ihr macht das leider mit dem Feuerzeug, oder?
Ja.
Ja, klar.
This is my rock because I can't open anything.
Mm.
Kills, baby. The rock just broke. I've been using it for months.
Can we have
Oh my
the,
God.
Can we have the mosaic?
The mosaic is on. The viewer has to go to the top right corner and press gallery view or speaker view to switch it. So we
No,
don't
but
have.
for me, for us.
Ah, yeah, I can do that.
Cheers, babes.
Ich schalte mich dann auch offline. Dankeschön auf jeden Fall. Dann, also ich muss sagen, ich bin sehr gerührt davon und ich schaue euch morgen auch nochmal zu. Und ja, Daumen hoch.
Sehr schön.
Dankeschön.
Bis morgen. And everybody who's still here, you can always put your address, your postal address in.
Then you'll get some
Smell for the remedies. Is that it? Are we 7 people now? Babe, your mic, Eroca. Bye, bye, bye. I can't hear you.
I said, hi, Katrine. And then I said, oh, shit.
No, there's still 21 people.
Ah, 21 people. I see only 7. Hello, 21 people.
The other trend, the other people don't have their camera turned on, so they can't see them.
Oh, that's because people are in bed.
Oh, yeah, I hope so.
Hopefully.
I mean, I really, really hope so that people are in bed. Hi, Mom. Hello, Mutti.
Oh my God, is that your mom?
That's my mom.
Hi, Siegmar's mom. Oh my God, you've been like my favorite face. Oh, here, boo. Of you, generational realness. I love it. Hi.
Mithu, we have only vodka or water for you.
Wow.
Beer without alcohol?
No. There might be a beer without
I'll
alcohol in
go
the
and
fridge.
get
Go and have a look.
Yeah, I'll have
Matty, do you want a beer?
Neil.
So I've made half.
Amazing. You actually did it.
Berry on the beach.
Yeah.
Badgie on the beach.
Yeah.
Berry.
So, Neha, are you going to have a drink at like what? 9 o'clock in the morning?
I have an excuse. I've actually been up since 5 p.m. yesterday, so I
baby.
Oh my God.
my proper nighttime.
They've got beer without alcohol. Would you like one too?
Oh
Honestly,
my God.
I don't know how you're still alive, dude. Baby, girl, how?
Do it all the time. Do it all the time. It's my life. That's how it is.
You're like, that's my life. Sleep is for the weak.
You were
Bye. Bye, Georg.
my good night.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
You are great. You are great.
Thank you. Sleep well.
I love you. Sleep well.
Nick, your hair is also slaying. My God. I love that like half of this is like our homies. Sup, homies?
I know. Nick looks amazing.
Huh?
This is what's so beautiful, that finally we can share the same thing. Like normally we just tell each other that we've done this or that, and finally we're in the same room.
I mean, I was feeling it. I had a little.
Oh shit!
No.
Oh man, y'all, I miss you, bitches. Red, how are you? Your little dog is so fucking cute. Like I'm dying.
I know. I love him so much.
He's so cute. I'm just like, when do I get to meet your baby?
Come here.
Keep my immune compromised ass north of the 49th, baby. Oh.
The dirt is so sexy.
Yep, and the dirt is going to be manipulated tomorrow even more. And these are filled with earth. So, you know, if you were all here, you'd be hugged by earthworms and octopi.
Snuggling earth sausage. This is like, we need a redux where it's in real life. I'm just like, all I want to do is snuggle an earth sausage.
And the beautiful thing is that if there's seeds in there, there's going to be stuff growing out of these. Yeah.
Ooh.
Enriched with the power of our loves.
Ooh.
I love it. Oh, I can't believe how much I did. Shit.
Can you show the tattoo that you did?
Red,
Yeah.
did you put makeup on during
Yes.
Yes, I can see that. I saw a lot of different, but now in your screen I can see. This is great.
For the Femme meditation.
Oh,
Yes.
he looks great.
Glitter.
This makes me want to start doing Femme meditation on Zoom so that we can see each other. Because the way we
beautiful.
do it, it's just on Instagram Live, and so we don't get to see what everyone else is doing, but it's so cute because people are like, and I did my eyebrows, and I did this, and like one person sent me like a picture of like only one strip of waxing. They were like, I did one and it hurt really bad. I'm never doing that again.
This is great.
Oh, I did have a question about the videos, like
Okay.
with the nail videos, like because there's no way of turning off the sound of the Zoom, you can't really hear them. So maybe we can put them in the waiting room so that like people
Ach
can
so,
look
ja,
at-
ja, Mithu soll wieder drauf, dann kann sie mitquatschen. Sorry, I was just talking about technical stuff.
So I was
And
opening
also-
fridges.
FFT people, I'm really sorry that I kept pressing the wrong button. My mute button for my computer is right at the same spot as the mute button for the square that Siegmar and Mithu are in, and I kept pressing the wrong one, so I'm really sorry.
No problem at all.
It happens.
Thank you all. This is amazing that this actually worked. Thank you so much for making it happen.
Yeah, and being there and staying there, because it is a lot easier in the kitchen. And
Mithu, you're a stand-up comedian. Like, you need your own fucking HBO show.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah. Well, this is it. I always dreamt of being a bus driver and having, not that I have a driving license, but being a bus driver and having like conversations. And this could be the other format, cooking shows and having talks about grief, love, life, and death.
Yeah, you know, I didn't realize I was missing this essential, I have this, you know, this sort of celestial cooking show,
right?
Earth witchery, plus like, it's like having two Femme, like not Mr. Rogers necessarily, but it somehow has the same kind of feel. It's very, it's gorgeous.
If we need a children's show about grief that is actually this fucking weird.
It's everything I've ever wanted. Actually, it's just really lovely. Yeah, it's so good. So good to see you two out there.
I just sent you the results, so you get one of each.
This I really love, that it's gonna, for some people it's gonna come in 3 days and for some people in 3 weeks or months, whoever knows. And then you just, it just continues.
The kitchen is gorgeous.
Thank you.
And they're all a bit different because the mixture, so they're layers to the mixture, so you will get all the smells that you need more, all the essences, all the essential oils that you really need the most. That will find their way to you.
I was so mad to not be able to smell it. I was just like,
And here because all the boiling is also like producing all these smells. So first it was all marjoram and oregano, and now the mushroom has taken over, and then this is gonna keep going. So
we should have a look at that, how far that's gone down. It's gonna be interesting.
And it was so nice when the videographer was doing close-ups of the plants and the theme.
Thank you, Sandra.
Yeah.
She's gone.
Oh, shit, babes. This just makes me miss you more.
That's the whole problem about these formats, is that the closer you get to real contact, the more they make you miss each other.
Or the longing is real.
Yeah.
Well, we just need to work that desire somehow.
There is something.
Is there something in there?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to see my altar? Pour that way.
Look at this.
So this is only the alcohol that's evaporated. If you can pour that back into the bottle or back into our concoction.
I'll put that in here.
Gotta get rid of all the alcohol in there.
There's still some. It's fine. I think we have to just put it on again tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's got 3 hours.
I don't think 3 hours would be enough. I think.
Well, we can't. I mean, I'll be here 2 hours early anyway, so it has 5 hours.
Let's turn it on when we come here.
There.
I'm just putting away my biohazards.
There you go. Right.
Ooh, it's a sexy shot, Red.
Yeah.
Like you're like showing a scruff photo.
Yes.
Yes, let's do it.
Smells amazing. It's a bit mean that we always say, oh, this smells amazing, but you will get it all. You will remember saying this smells amazing when it comes to you.
In a way, you're mentioning that it smells so amazing also makes me smell it a little bit. So it's good.
Yeah.
Not just making it not mean, not at all. Opposite.
We're always told you can't remember smells, and it's a lie. You can, of course.
Oh, that's the strongest thing, I think, that you remember.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think it is.
Because also you can't get away from them. I mean, you have to breathe, so you'll smell.
Oh,
Katrin.
Yeah, how are you doing?
You're just beaming over there.
Sorry?
You're beaming across the screen.
I'm just happy.
Yeah.
I think it was amazing how you brought everybody in touch. Talking about touching and that it's impossible, and in a way, I think it was amazing how we all connected in this over these 3 hours or so. Really cool.
Great. Well, we should have done the 30 hours, hey?
I mean, as much as I love it, I don't even know if we should have done it last time. You know what I mean?
No, but I think it was amazing how quickly these 3 hours passed. At least here, like.
It was fast. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Lisa. You have to unmute yourself so we can see you. Hi. This is the other witch in Amsterdam, who is my smell witch, and also the person who is doing the glaze out of Susanne's ashes, and a very dear old friend. Hi, Lisa.
I have your smell on right now.
We're doing glazes. Susanne was a potter and she wanted to make glaze out of her ashes. And Lisa is also a potter, amongst other things.
Wow. Your reputation precedes you.
Yes.
I have been wearing smells of yours from several of these babes for like years.
Yeah, your scents are saving my life.
Yeah.
Because I'm spreading them everywhere, Lisa. Unmute yourself, please, so we can hear you. Lisa.
She can't.
You don't want to unmute yourself.
No.
But
Okay. You
thank
can't.
I hope we meet next time I'm in Amsterdam. Ciao, babies.
Well, how is it? Do we have to go? Is this the end of the meeting? It seems
It's really hard to go, but we will come back tomorrow, so it's easier.
We'll come back tomorrow.
Thank you.
See you, loves.
Good night.
See you. Good night.
Good day.
Have a lovely day.
Bye, babies.
Mwah.
Love you all so much. I'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
See ya.
Definitely.
Bye, Lisa.